Today's guest for the podcast comes to us all the way from Ontario, Canada, where he and Dr. Stephanie own Black Kraken Kennels and Black Kraken Canine together, which is actually the breeder that gave me this cute little monster. Delta, come here. Say hi, butthead. Hello. Anyway, without further ado, this is my conversation with Jamie. Welcome to the Black Wolf Brigade. The show starts now. I'm a dog trainer from Texas, and I work with last chance dogs. But their last chance with me is the only thing standing between them and euthanasia or rehoming. My mission? To give dog owners the skills to bring out the best in their dogs so that they can work with them and not against them. Join the movement as we change the world of dogs forever.
So I want to dive straight into something. You and Mark are professional pot stirrers. And for this, I look up to you. But it's a differentiated marketing message, really. Like, as a fellow professional, the genius in it is not just that you get to let off steam, which is nice. It's not even just the engagement farming, which is great. It's the fact that you will promptly repel everyone you hope you don't have to work with. You know what I mean?
I'm glad it's obvious to at least some people what we're trying to do. Are we on, by the way? Have we started? Are we just jumping right in?
So this is pre-recorded so that I don't have the pressure. I don't have the patience for live.
Oh, sweet. Okay, perfect. No, that works for me.
Because
yeah,
on
look,
live,
I mean,
like, anything can go wrong, and then you're scrambling, and it's a nightmare. I don't want to do that crap.
oh, I'm with you. I record everything as well. Yeah, look, I mean, I guess we can get into it a little bit more later if you want to, but just, you know, just quickly, my background, like, I don't know anything about social media.
Oh,
right?
I plan on diving deep into that. Yeah.
So my background was in finance, and then we ended up making the switch, and I started up Black Kraken with Stephanie, and it became really clear really fast that the only way that you can really sell dogs and sell your services is to be strong on social media.
Yeah.
And you know, after having spent so much time in such a stodgy environment as banking, where I could never really be myself, I kind of just made the decision when I got out of banking that I was just going to be me. And if people want to work with me, I think I'm a pretty good guy, a pretty decent guy to work with, pretty easy guy to work with. If they want that, great. If they don't like what I have to say, then I don't have to work with people I don't want to work with. Bye. Right. Exactly.
Right. There's the door.
So that's kind of been the strategy. And what I realized is, you know, like, look, a lot of the stuff that we put out on social media is kind of a Rorschach test in terms of the person who's reading it.
Ooh,
like,
yeah, good point.
We don't, you know, like, look, we'll put out some more detailed stuff, but often it's tweet style, or X, whatever it's called now, style, commentary and things like that. And, you know, there's maybe not as much detail in it as there would be if you wrote a multi-page essay.
Sure.
And so people sort of take it the way they want, and it creates discussion. And then what I came to realize is, by doing that, and we get these posts that create discussion, they create a little bit of anger and fire here and there. The stuff that we put out that we actually want people to see, the stuff that I think is actually valuable, on the internet is not valuable information. It's entertainment for me, first and foremost. And then, you know, it's turned out that a bunch of people who follow us, well, thank you. But, you know, it's turned out that people liked it. And I didn't know that when we started doing it. But as I started doing more of that, we started getting more and more people following us.
Yeah.
And what became really clear, I think that's part of it. Like, what you see online is me. Like, if we're hanging out, shooting, you're going to get the same thing out of me here as you are online. And that's just, it's a lot easier for me though. It's just, I don't have to try to be someone else.
Yeah.
But what became clear, like, we actually want to put out value into the dog world, whether that's, you know, high quality dogs or high quality training advice, behavioral advice, things along those lines. And look, the simple fact of the matter is that if people like you, they're more willing to listen to what you have to say. So there's two pieces that end up happening. One, it's that because of the engagement that some of the quote unquote engagement farming, not even quote unquote, they're engagement farming, like let's just call
100%.
them what they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Posts, because we have those posts that get that kind of engagement. When we do put something valuable out, which I like to we try to strike a balance, right? We try to have some cute photos, we try to have some edgy, irreverent stuff, and then we try to have some good, useful dog related, either training or behavioral or,
Sure.
you know, whatever else information.
Yeah.
And because we've gotten that engagement, the algorithm then puts our actually valuable stuff out in front of more people. So it kind of starts to feed off itself. So professional pot stir, yeah, I guess so. But there's a method
absolutely.
There's a method to the madness.
You know what? I'm sure, you know, I just in my limited time with you guys, because I haven't been here since the beginning, but I have found you guys to be actually very very thoughtful, very intentional. So I figure there's probably a blueprint to it, you know, even without peeking behind the curtain. But I found the same thing, that, you know, some of your content, it's the bait to get people in, and then it's like you give them what they want so you can give them what they need. It's like,
That's
oh,
a really good
look,
way of putting it.
I'm talking crap to someone. Come argue on social media. It'll be fun. We'll throw rocks at our enemies. And then they come over and it's like, so since you're here, your dog's recall really needs to be better, or it's going to end up under a truck. And the dog owner's like, you know, I was just going to talk crap about Zach George, but you're right.
Yeah, and you know, we've seen it working. So I just stick with it. It's sort of it's just fun for me, to be
Oh, I
honest
love
with
it.
you.
I love it. I have been more
I get a kick out of
emboldened.
it.
I've been so emboldened by seeing you and Mark do that mess. And I think for
When you
so
say Mark,
long,
sorry, who do you mean by Mark?
Mark Connolly at Canine Command.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to spend more time following them.
Oh my
I haven't
gosh. Yeah,
seen
yeah.
a lot of what he does.
He does a lot of that crap, man. And he said it was, when I had him on the podcast, I think he said it was 7 years ago, that he just started, you know, basically going, you know what, screw it, and started posting like things that his wife, because he owns it with his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, you might make it clear on the internet that you and Stephanie are not together, because everybody thinks that a man and a woman that train dogs together are definitely married. And my wife at some point goes, are Jamie and Stephanie not together? I was like, no, they're not.
No, we live 5 hours away from each other. She's got a husband, I've got a wife. It's
so, but he said that his wife started saying like, you need to delete that. And he was like, no, I'm not doing it anymore. And I think you have actually a unique perspective of this. Like, you lived, I'm not going to say lived a lie. You know, you didn't exactly have a, you know, a fake marriage and you're secretly closeted gay. Like, it's not that caliber, you know what I mean? But I can't imagine that a guy that finds working with dogs as exhilarating as you do, and much less working dogs. We're not talking about pet caliber dogs, working dogs. I mean, you frustrate these things and they'll hurt you. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not careful, you can actually get hurt with a working dog in a way that you won't get hurt from a pet. I can't imagine a guy that finds that, like, that's what lights the candle. You know what I mean? It's just like plugging in 12 hours at the, you know, at the open market. And he's like, yep, I read, you know, 15 reports today, and I think this one's going to do well over the next, you know, Q4 is really going to come in for us, you know? So tell me, I had someone, I think now's a good time to go into it. I had someone that asked me a couple months back. I was wearing my work shirt. It says Perfect Pack Dog Training on the front. And I put dog training in the name because I figured Google would pick it up, you know, all that, this business stuff. It's like engagement farming. It's like, why's your name
it's
exactly
smart. We
what
did
it
it all
is?
wrong when it came to that. We ended up with something that had like 25 Ks in it and impossible to spell and zero SEO. So yeah, no, I think it's a smart move.
I'm just glad that there was no third K in between Black Kraken Kennels, that there aren't three that line up together.
Yeah.
It could have been a total accident, because between Black and Kraken you have two, and I looked at your name recently and I go, they got close. They got close to getting
It's
canceled.
true.
The internet would find that. So somebody asked me, and they said, "You're a dog trainer?" And I said, "Yep, that's what I do." And every time someone asks me what I do, and I tell them I'm a dog trainer, and you might get this as well, I say, "Well, I train dogs." They look at me with this look that says, "Oh, I forgot that was an option. That wasn't at career day." You know, like I forgot that was something people do. But you're right. And she says, "How did you get into dog training?" I'm at the gas station about to put money on the pump, and I sit there and I really think about it. She goes, never mind. Because I'm I'm taking too long to answer the question. I was like, no, it's a good question, because I know how I got into it, but how I got into it's a little weird. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, I think how everybody gets into this is a bit weird. And so, what is the
Some weirder than others, probably. But yeah.
walk me through what it's like? I mean, you don't exactly wake up and just get into finance. I mean, you planned for that, right? Like, you
Yeah.
plan your career for that kind of thing. What's it like? How much preparation goes into that career that you then suddenly find unfulfilling? And what's the bridge to becoming a dog trainer for you? And what even tells you that this is a profession, not much less a hobby, a profession you want to chase? What is that like?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something that in the last, I guess I've been doing this for almost 6 years now. I've spent a lot of time unpacking who I was, who I am, where I came from, how I got to where I am. Because it's kind of it's a bit of a unique path. So I went to business school here in Canada. There's a
Yeah.
school called Queen's. There's basically, I mean, I'm gonna get in trouble from any Queen's or from any Canadian business school people, but I would say there's two major business schools in Canada. Queen's is one of them, and when you end up at Queen's in business, you're more or less put on rails at that point, and your
Oh, okay.
career,
The
you're
networking's
sucked
just
through the
that good.
system. Assuming you are able to make it from front to back of the program, when you come out the other side, you're either going into consulting, you're going into banking, you're going into accounting, or weirdly enough, you're going into insurance. And so those are the I would say like the four major outflows. I started out going off into the insurance route, because my grades weren't good enough for the other stuff. And from insurance, a few years after that, I made the switch over to banking. So within a couple of years, I ended up switching over into banking. And again, once you're in the finance world, there's this thing called the golden handcuffs. And anybody who's
Yeah.
been in the world is familiar with it. Um, you're always keeping up with the Joneses. You're buying the $3,000 suits, you're buying the new car, you're buying the $1 million house, you're doing all of these things, and now all of a sudden, that paycheck and that bonus becomes way more important, and you just
Yeah.
sort of get sucked in and stuck doing what you're doing.
Lifeless
And
work.
yeah, and I found myself like I started after 5, 10 years, I started really struggling. I was going through depression. I was going through severe anxiety. It's a pressure cooker environment to begin
I'm
with, and
sure.
I was doing something that I hated.
Yeah.
I would wake up every day wishing for the weekend, and then at the end of the weekend I'd spend Sunday evening dreading the week. And honestly, that's no way to live. So I spend a lot of my
Dude.
time now encouraging people not to live that way, because the money's not worth it. And the money was good.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I hit a point where I kind of broke, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I have no idea how to get out. I have no idea where to go. I don't know. Like, again, when you're in it, you're in it. Like, this is what I am. This is what I do.
So if you
And
don't mind me
so,
asking, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? What like broke you? Because people in that sector are made of cast iron, and you have to be. But
yeah.
what broke you?
we're getting deep now.
If you don't mind
I
me,
broke.
now if that's too deep, then
No.
you just tell me,
Like
hey,
no.
go
Look,
pound sand.
I've written about this on LinkedIn. I have some essays that I've written about this. That I try to help people who are in the finance world and suffering
Mhm.
through some of the stuff that I did. And honestly, I randomly broke down in tears in the office for no reason one day.
Oh man.
Just and I didn't know why. I didn't know what happened. I was at my desk and I broke down. And for anybody who's in finance, like that you don't do that.
Sure.
You don't do that. And
Seems
so
like a sterile
like
environment.
it's just like that's a quick way to just not progress any further if you're the guy that's breaking down in the office. And
Mm.
anyway, like nobody saw me. I hit it, got off to a breakout room, and then realized that I had to do something. So I started getting into. I called the therapist. I started figuring out what was going on in my head, and then started to realize that the life that I was living was contributing greatly to the mental suffering that I was that I was experiencing. And so I decided that I'd had a dog my whole life growing up, more than one dog. I'd had dogs my entire life. I've always been passionate about dogs in general. And one day I stumbled across this website called Learberg. I don't know if you're familiar with Learberg.
Heard of it.
It's a great it's an older website now, but it's a good resource. And certainly back then, this is 10 years ago now, it was one of the better resources out there. And I stumbled across it and I just started reading. It had a lot of articles, and I just started reading these articles and getting fascinated by marker training and training,
Yeah.
power of training with food, and why prong collars aren't evil devices, and all of these things. And I just started learning and learning and learning. And then I like the one thing that I have going for me is that I'm a fairly quick study. I can pick stuff up pretty quickly and synthesize it and make sense of it. And that has benefited me throughout my career. And I started to really get a sense that like I get this, I understand this. And as we all know, that's great on paper. It doesn't work until you actually start putting it on a dog.
That's right.
And so the next step, I didn't have a dog at that point. The next step was, okay, I want to get myself a dog. Well, I have a wife who's not a dog person. She'd never had a dog before meeting me, never had a dog in her life. And at that point, we had 8-month-old boy-girl twins.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we had my
Yeah,
wife is a lawyer.
I could understand everything like bubbling to the top and you exploding. I mean, I've got 2 kids, let alone twins.
Yeah. So I mean, I would imagine that played a pretty big role in the whole thing. My wife's a
It just
lawyer.
makes everything else, I think, in your life, the things that already were a problem, it will expose to you that those are a problem. I think kids
and the
help you
stress boils
find.
over.
Yeah, I think kids I think about like how they'll test like AC systems. They'll run pressure on it and try to find leaks. They'll take a tire off and put it underwater to find out where bubbles are coming from. I think kids are like a pressure testing system that help us find where the frickin' cracks are.
Yeah, I
And
think that's a good way of putting it.
holy mackerel, of course you were
So
breaking down.
so at this point in time now, I decided, okay, I convinced my wife to let me get a dog. I said, you won't have to do anything.
Yeah.
It's not going to affect our home life or whatever. This is just something that I want to do. I've got to do this. And so we
So at
found
this
dog.
time, you're thinking about becoming a professional dog trainer,
No,
or you're
hadn't
just
even
going
crossed my
deeper into
mind.
a hobby.
At this point, I'm going deeper into a hobby. It was an escape for me to get away from the day-to-day that I hated.
So this was
And
therapy.
so this was therapy. Yeah. And so I got this dog, and then it was, every day I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I would take the dog out, train the dog, apply what I was learning, do as much as I could. Try to get home in time to get back into bed before my wife had to get up to start her day. So I'd try to wake up, I'd be back in
With her.
bed when she woke up. And then we'd get up, 6, whatever it was, and start our day and go from there. Go to work, come back home, train the dog. And I just started getting more and more into getting higher and higher levels of progression with this dog. And honestly, she was a showline German Shepherd. Like, she's limited by genetics as to what she can do.
Of course.
But it ended up being fantastic because rather than having this dog that naturally took to everything that I wanted to do, I actually had to build this dog into what I wanted her to become. And so anyway, I don't want to draw this out too long, but the bottom line was then at a certain point, I got her to a point where that was all I could do. I had her very well trained. It was time to move on to off-leash e-collar training. And I knew at that point in time that that's not something that I'm willing to teach myself. I need to learn from someone who knows what they're doing. And that kind of started the next step in my progression where, like, look, I was in a situation where I had money, but I didn't have time. And when you're younger, you have time, but you don't have money. And so my strategy,
you can pay your dues one of two ways. You can do it with your time, with your time or your money.
And so, apprenticing was never going to be an option for me because at that point I still had a full-time job that I couldn't get out of. And so what I started doing was I started I started with one trainer. And then there was an excellent trainer here in Ontario. And from there, what I decided to do was I was going to buy private sessions with all of the best trainers that I could possibly find. And
smart.
Suck all of that information, as much of it as I could, and ask questions and be that guy that's just constantly dragging information out of people.
Of course.
And, look, trainers don't necessarily always want to give the secret sauce, but it's like anything else. This is a relationship game, and you start to build those relationships, and the better you maintain those relationships, the more information you start to earn. And, over time, I started getting more and more competent at what I was doing. And then it was like, okay, I got to start training other dogs, other people's dogs. Well, I didn't feel right. I'm a huge believer in you never sell yourself on something that you're not qualified to be sold on doing, right? Like I was not worthy of being paid to be a dog trainer at that point in time. So back then, Reddit was really big. We had a local Reddit page. I put up an ad on Reddit saying free dog training. Who wants it?
Smart.
And so then it started, like, evenings and weekends. I would travel around to people's houses and I would train their dogs for free. And I was getting my experience that way. I was still paying different trainers, and then I was going around and taking all that stuff that I was using and applying it and realizing that, okay, the textbook says one thing and real life says another, and you need to make the adjustments and bridge that gap.
Yeah.
And I just kept on going that way until finally, I had worked with a ton of different trainers. I had at this point met my current business partner, Stephanie. We had become friends. She was friends with my wife. I was friends with her husband. And we started, talking about different ideas, and she wasn't really loving what she was doing at that point, and I was hating what I was doing at that point. And then out of the blue, my wife gets an opportunity to transfer to a different courthouse. So she's a prosecutor. She was working at one courthouse, and we had the opportunity to transfer to a small town here in Ontario called Napanee. And when we started looking, we could buy 180 acres for the price of the equity in our house that we currently own.
Wow.
And so it became a discussion then of, okay, maybe this is actually a chance for me to quit banking and start doing something that I want to do. And so that was the opportunity that we took. And, I have this philosophy that I kind of live by where I sort of just tell myself, you've just got to jump. You learn all you can, you put up, you gather all the information you can. And, whether it's, I've done a lot of travel and various different things that a lot of people would raise their eyebrow and look at you kind of funny for having done. So this wasn't the first crazy move that I had made. But at a certain point in time, you get all your ducks in a row, and then you've got to just jump.
That's right.
And so that's what we did. We said, all right, screw it. Here we go. and we went in with
Love
2
that.
feet. I quit the bank. We started Black Kraken. We bought our first breeding female. I decided I was going to have to suck up my imposter syndrome and start charging for training.
Of course.
And I did. And that started going better and better and better. And for years, I wasn't comfortable calling myself a dog trainer. I still sometimes feel uncomfortable calling myself a dog trainer.
No fooling.
And at a certain point, when I finally put a BH on my dog and I earned high BH in that competition, I figured, okay, yes, it's just a BH. Anyone who's ever done a BH knows that it's more than just a BH. But as far as the IGP thing goes, it's just a BH. I get it.
Sure.
But for me, it was proof that, okay, I've done something here that not a lot of people are able to do or end up doing. Right. And now I feel
most dogs will never
myself.
be at that standard. And this is what I tell owners, like when we've got a program that includes their, it's weird calling it basic obedience, because you and I know that there's really no standard in the dog training industry. One guy up the street will say, if I ask the dog to sit and 6 out of 10 times he does it, then he's trained. And somebody like you or like me would say, I need to be able to get darn near 100 out of 100 to have a dog proof. Now, I'm going to have to admit to myself that my dog is only human, so there's bound to be a screw up here and there. You gotta make the dog more perfect than yourself in order to say 100 out of 100, right? But there's no standard. But I tell clients all the time, we've got a program that's it's basic obedience, but taken through the advanced level. So it's like your dog will do it every time if you follow through. Now that's another conversation I want to get to later, but I tell people on that program, it's like your dog is about to be the best trained dog you've ever met. Not because there's no training higher than what I'm going to take your dog through, but because there's a really good chance you will never meet a dog that has been trained to this level just because people don't do it. Like a dog with a BH is one of those that, like, you see it out in public, you go, wow, that dog's trained. And it's calls,
magical to people on the outside.
Yeah, that's right. You look at it and you go, holy mackerel. Are you kidding me? Is this a joke? And I remember a dog who was in our 6-week board and train program, which is what that one is. I remember we were 3 or 4 weeks in. We weren't done. And I took him Tractor Supply with me when I was getting some feed or something. And I get to the counter. I tell him to down. He plops straight into a down. And, we're just a few weeks in. And this person goes, oh, he's really trained. And of course, on the inside, you go, like, don't get me wrong. I've put in reps, and I'm proud of the reps I've put in. And his down does look fantastic. He's got a very quick, prompt down. And I worked hard for that. Sure, that's true. But man, the standard in the pet world is so unbelievably low in some respects. And so major kudos. So you get this dog a BH, and that's when you finally go, you know what? Screw it. I'm a dog trainer, and I'm good at what I do, dang it.
You know what? That was pretty much it. And look, I had trained plenty of dogs at that point in time and had gotten good results. And the thing is, I mean, if for anybody who deals with imposter syndrome on a regular basis, like that's just the story of my life. I was a banker and I felt like I wasn't good enough to be a banker, and I'm a dog trainer, and you know what I mean? It's just something that you deal with as an adult. You realize it's one of the quirks of your personality, and it's just something you got to work through. But yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where it took proving myself to feel comfortable
at a trial.
with it.
Yeah.
At a trial. And again, I don't want to talk it up to be more than it is, because anybody who's put a 1 or a 2 or a 3 on a dog is kind of rolling their eyes. But but look, for someone who had never done it before at that point and had come from such a different place, it was a big milestone for me. Yep. And at some point, the 1 and the 2 and the 3 will come, when I can make that happen.
Well, and I think, a lot of it is when you have the time. I mean, some people don't realize raising and training a working dog is, a 10-year commitment to competition. And it's like, it's not just a 10-year commitment on a dog. It's like that dog's not going to reach their peak until they're 6 years old. Mm-hmm. Like that dog's going to be in their best form like Delta will not be what she's going to be till like 5 or 6 years from now. She will be growing for that long. Like, people don't realize that, working dogs are trained on heel for a year. Like, that's just
absolutely.
the perfect competition. It's not the same. So you come into this from a career you hate, and it's more so therapy for you at first. And I think that's how a lot of us begin to some degree or another. We weren't bankers by any stretch. But I think people can look back and say, like, this is the dog that lit that pilot fire for me. That this is the dog that made me realize I think I want to do this. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about that with you, I get it, it's 30 minutes, on one question, but one of the reasons why I want to talk to you about that is there are dog owners who like have come to me, and I've trained their dog through private lessons. So it's very, it's a collaborative thing. Like, I'm going to teach you how to do this, and you're going to run that for homework for the next 7 days. And then we're going to meet again, and I'm going to teach you something else, and you're going to run that for homework for the next 7 days. And I have clients who, we train their dog, and I think for the first moment they go, I think I want to be a dog trainer. Like, they finish their dog and they go, that was so much better than what I'm doing now. I really enjoy this. What would you say to a dog owner who's gotten their feet wet, they love it, and they're considering making the move, but they're scared?
You'll never not be scared to make a move. The fear is just part of it.
Do you
I
think
would
the
say
fear is like a good motivator?
I think it depends on
Like,
who
if you
you
can
are,
channel
and
it, you know what I mean?
yeah, I think it depends on your ability to tolerate ambiguity in your life,
Mhm.
and your experience in doing that. Um, it's Look, I think you need to have very thick skin.
Yeah.
You need to be able to withstand tremendous amounts of self-doubt and of external doubt. Because
Yeah.
as you and I both know, for people who aren't in the dog world, a lot of people don't know this, but it is the most insecure, and I've just talked about all my insecurities. People handle them in different ways.
Yeah.
I tend to I want to build people up. I like building other people up, and I want to surround myself with other people who want to build people into better things. I like
That's
that.
why you work with working dogs. You like building stuff
Yeah,
up.
but there's a lot of people in the world who would rather
Tear
shit
someone else
talk
down.
people and tear
Yeah.
people down. Crabs in a bucket. Your success is my failure. And, I don't have any time for that. And I was very, very lucky to have come into, like, I came into this world in my 30s after having had a successful career doing something else, and being very capable of telling someone else to just go kick rocks. I don't care what you have to say.
Yeah. Go pound
right?
sand. Who cares?
Yeah.
I love it.
Whereas, with less, if you come into it with less life experience, or maybe less thick skin, it was hard for me, and I came into it without those things. So, I mean, like, look, we got told, you're going to fail as breeders. There's no way anyone's going to sell you good breeding stock. You don't
Ouch.
have the body of work to have an opinion when it comes to dog training. You look, you get told all of that stuff in the beginning.
Yeah.
Both to our face, and more often than not behind your back, and it comes back to you, which is sometimes even harder
Sucks
to deal with.
hear.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, like, look, the only thing that ever proves those people wrong is the quality of your work. So what they
Success
have to
is.
say,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah,
My
what they
bad,
have to
brother.
say, no, but what they have to say doesn't matter. That's the thing, right?
That's
And so
right.
that's the thing that I would encourage people to do, is like, look, I know you're a religious guy. I'm not a
Yeah.
religious guy. I believe we go through this world once and there's nothing after it. And so the way
True.
I look at my world is, I've got one shot at this.
Hey, this is a blip.
This is a blip,
Sure.
and I've got 5,000 weeks to live, and then I'm gonna be dust again. And so I encourage everybody to do the thing that is going to give them fulfillment for those remaining 3,000 weeks that you have left in your life. And so to anyone who's thinking about doing it, I could not be more encouraging of making the effort, but you have to set yourself up for success. You can't just leap into it. You have to build the foundation, get yourself in a position, you know, with it maybe as a side hustle or what have you, such that then you can put yourself in a position to make that jump, and then just be ready to deal with all the BS that's going to come at you, because there's going to be a lot of it.
Yeah, I want to pivot now to some of your greatest hits on social media, because there's one that's really appropriate to what we're talking about. Breeders with great minds talk about ideas. Breeders with a normal mind talk about results. Breeders with a small mind talk about other breeders and handlers. Speak to that just a bit.
So that's a quote from my breeding mentor,
Koos
Passing. And Koos is no longer with us.
Sorry to hear
that. He passed away a few months ago. He had a stroke, and I guess it's probably closing in on a year now, actually. But that was a very sad day, because that man has forgotten more about breeding German Shepherds than I will probably ever know. And so if anybody, Koos, there's not a lot of Koos out there. Look him up. The guy, he's just a legend in the German Shepherd world. And so, yeah, that was one of the things that he liked to say, and I think really, to me, what that quote really boils down to is, it's not the first two parts, it's the small mind talking about other breeders. And
that's right.
That to me is the part that really jumps out. And you know, there is no benefit to you ever of talking crap about someone else. Just do better work. And so when I see, you know,
I think with an asterisk,
breeders,
though, I think there are some people that are genuinely lying on the internet, and you and I agree that they're full of crap. And I actually talk crap about that. You know, there are people that are blatantly, outwardly, objectively, we all know it, lying their tails off. And I'll talk loads of crap about that.
I agree there. What I'm talking about more than anything is, you know, the quality of dogs. Like, look, there's breeders out there who are doing their very best. They're breeding what they consider to be high quality dogs. And they are breeding, you know, biddable, medium drive German Shepherds, that will be great, you know, as a family dog, and maybe do some canine acting and whatever. And like, look, there's breeders that are trying to breed those dogs, and I say, you know, power to you. Like, that's not my type of dog. I don't like that type of dog. I don't necessarily think that that's the right direction for German Shepherds to go. But I'll talk about what direction I think German Shepherds should go and what I think German Shepherds should be bred for.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say, hey, breeder XYZ over there, your dogs are crap because you're breeding them to this standard. Like, that to me, and there's people out there who'll do that, right? And not only people, there's a lot of people in this world that'll do that. And I just don't have any time for that. I think it's silly. I think it's better, you know, my friend Rod at Viking Canine Canada has a saying that all of us are smarter than any one of us. And
that's right.
He says that a lot.
That's a good point.
I like that a lot. I like to gather as much information as I can and synthesize that versus saying you're wrong, I'm right.
Yeah, I think and this is actually a good question that I was about to forget to ask. So you've been training dogs for a decade now. And do I understand that correctly? Do I recall the timeline right? Somewhere about a decade. Do you still, even today, try to find pieces of information from other dog trainers? Do you still today try to study?
Every single day.
I love hearing you say that, because I think as big a game sometimes as we can talk, because we've got the we've got the results to prove it. Over the years, you have enough reviews, you've got enough pictures and videos and stuff like that, and it's pretty well known. I can handle X, Y, and Z pretty dang easy. But it's easy to think when people look at someone like you, people look like someone like us who have a body of work and see the success in the past. It's easy to think that we're just resting on laurels and that we just think we know it all. And over here, I have countless books. I've even got I have the books of trainers I disagree with to some degree. I have the book of a trainer I absolutely, if you can call him a trainer, because the idea is this: somebody said, I know who I'm talking about. Somebody somewhere has got a nugget of information that I'm going to go, yeah, you're full of crap on this, but holy mackerel, you were spot on here. That was a good idea. And especially like for you work really closely with Stephanie, and I'm sure that was a cool thing, coming into the professional world, like, because you weren't uneducated and you weren't untried. You know what I'm saying? You had experience, but I'm sure there were moments where it was like, hey, I know this works, but is there a clinical reason why this works?
Certainly with Stephanie, like, so for anyone who's watching, who I would imagine most people aren't very familiar with me or with Stephanie. Stephanie is she's my business partner in the second half of Black Kraken Canine. I think you interviewed her a couple weeks ago. I don't know if that has dropped yet.
Not yet.
But she's a PhD in animal behavior and welfare. And so, yeah, she has been a massive resource for me. I mean, look, we're different. Every trainer has their own style, 100%. And the only thing that you can guarantee when 3 dog trainers get into a room is that 2 of them are going to think the other one's an idiot.
That's right.
And
that's right.
And that goes just as much for your business partner as it does for you and me, as it does for anyone else. Not necessarily the idiot part, but you're going to disagree on how things are done, right? And so, yeah, it's been having Stephanie. We do things differently. We have different outlooks on things. We have different beliefs when it comes to the dog training world, but we have the overriding desire to create the best possible dogs. And as a result, she learns from me, I learn from her, and collectively we like to learn from, as many different people as we can. Like, honestly, the thought of resting on my laurels right now, I'm not there. Like, I don't consider myself to be a successful dog trainer. I'm still trying to become, like, my standards of success are much higher than where I am right now. So I have a lot to learn. And I've learned a lot, and I can do a lot, and I've been successful so far, but I don't consider myself to be a success. And so, every day just trying to get better and better.
I want to come back to one of your greatest hits that seems appropriate right now. It's actually something you shared, not something you said. It was originally from Complete Canine Care, and it says, being certified in this industry means absolutely nothing. There are plenty of certified trainers out there who talk science and theory all day long, but when you put a leash in their hands, they flop. I think there's a disconnect so often between what you know and what you can use. And you mentioned a moment ago, a little while ago, you said, hey, this is how it looks in a textbook, but it doesn't work like this out in the real world. Speak to that a bit.
So Complete Canine Care, everybody should go check them out. Brent Alvey and Sarah Alvey, another Ontario dog trainers, excellent dog trainers. Yeah, look, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I choose to believe it is, that there's an inverse relationship between the number of letters that come after your name and your ability to actually train dogs.
Yeah.
And, but the thing is that I think that that's true almost anywhere. Like, I remember in my finance days, you'd have these guys that they practically needed a fold out business card because they had so many designations after their name.
Mm-hmm.
And they were never the most impressive people. John Smith, here's my business card. That guy was the guy that was the most impressive guy for the most part. And I think that is largely the case in the dog world as well, where people will put there are certifications out there. There's some good
Yeah.
ones. Like if you're talking Ivan Balabanov, Training Without Conflict, if you're talking
Yeah.
Bart Balan, Nepopo, like look, both of those, if someone is certified in one of those, they know what they're doing. There is no doubt. And then there's a million other ones also. And the thing is, there's no standardization, and there's no, you and I know that Training Without Conflict is a good program. And if you find someone who's certified in that, they're going to be a good dog trainer.
Yeah, good idea.
The average person sees, TWC certified or, the veterinary, what was that one?
Whatever it is.
Yeah, the veterinary behaviorists, whatever, hot dogs and hugs, never punish your dog crowd.
Hot dogs and hugs.
They're certified too, right?
That's right.
We put up a video yesterday.
Actually, by the way, I don't think you know this. I hold 50 certifications. It's from a school I made up 5 seconds ago, but I hold a lot of certifications.
But that's kind of, you hit on it, right? There's no accreditation. The certifications really, they don't mean anything. And honestly, I get my backup when I hear people starting to talk about regulating the dog training industry and requiring standardized certifications. I think that's a bad idea, because what that's going to do is it's going to focus all of the attention. Like, political expediency is what is going to drive that situation forward. And it's a whole lot more politically expedient to be the politician that's supporting the no use of tools, again, hot dogs and hugs, we're going to make sure that the pets never experience any stress. Doesn't that sound nice? Like, that's a wonderful world we all want to live in, right?
Sure.
And now all of a sudden, Zach George is the head certification guy for North American dog trainers.
Yeah.
And, all the dogs that you and I like are being put down because nobody can train them anymore.
That's right.
And so, I think generalized certification for dog trainers is a bad idea, because it's not going to end up the way people in our world want it to end up. It will likely end up the way that the people who are pushing hardest for the certification of dog trainers, they're doing that for a reason, because they want it to end up their way, which is going to be with the elimination of aversive tools.
Yeah. And you know what? So you and I know this. Dog training, the dog world is a microcosm of socio-political agendas. And this is one of the things I love about having you on. A lot of people are going to be scared of talking about this, but you'll just say it. By the way, I wore my 1776 hat on purpose, because I actually really like you guys, but like just a little bit of America going on in here. But
hey man, we burned down the White House.
I know, man. That's why I'm still pissed, dude. But that said, but you guys did go to Vietnam with us. I can't be that pissed. So even though we shouldn't have
Korea,
been in Vietnam,
we weren't in Vietnam. We were in Korea.
Oh, I thought it was no. There was definitely my father. He feels like a father to me. I was in a quartet with him. He was the bass singer. His father, was Canadian Army. And they were in Vietnam, I think maybe just helping U.S. troops, like not helping with the effort, but I think maybe just helping with the fact that we couldn't keep U.S. men alive. So
yeah, that's a problem in a war.
But that said, I think it was only medical personnel. But so this is a topic that many would shy away from. Here's the thing. The reason why regulation will never work in the dog training industry, it will never work. It can work in banking if we'd ever have the backbone to tell bankers, hey, maybe don't do subprime anymore, and we won't have to frickin' bail you out again. Like maybe if we actually had consequences for that crap, it would stop. It will work in certain industries. The reason it will never work in the dog training industry is it's too akin to parenting. It will never work to legislate parents how they're allowed to raise their kids. That will never work. And here's the thing. It's like one of the things we found out the U.S. did, going from World War II on to the more modern wars. When we look at Vietnam and when we look at Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom, one of the reasons why that crap failed, among many, is you cannot fight a war from the White House. You cannot just have a guy in a cushy chair in the Oval Office saying what has to happen. That's not how war works. There is a reason why we had an unbelievable structure of power in the world wars and why we pulled them off. So you can't just top-down force this crap, especially something as complex as child rearing, which is what dog training is. And a lot of people are scared of anthropomorphization. I'm not. I'm not scared of it at all. Why? I punish my kids. Like, and these people, it's like, don't ever use anything aversive. It's like, please, dear God, do not breed. Do not raise kids. You're going to create total nightmares that I have to deal with. They're going to rear end me because they're on freaking TikTok. And then I'm going to find out they don't have insurance because they can't hold a job. And you know what I'm saying? And this sounds very ranty, but it's like, the same people who don't know how to discipline children are saying that we shouldn't discipline dogs. And it's just further downstream of something we see in dog ownership. So just like you or I, we were dog owners before we were dog trainers. We loved dogs before we started training them officially. You know what I'm saying? Just like we had a draw to these animals before we started becoming professionals. And most people do. I have only known of a couple, quote, trainers that didn't own dogs. I think you and I know who I'm talking about, and she was a nightmare. So, very few dog trainers don't own dogs. But I'm not scared of the anthropomorphization at all because the dog owners who don't believe in discipline are raising these nightmares of children. And you can see it sometimes. I'm not speaking of any specific. If you're a client of mine and you think I'm talking about you, here's your notification. I'm not. But you see these kids sometimes, and it's like, well, your dog's messed up for the same reason your kids are. And what happens is these people get into the industry for the same reason you or I do. And they become trainers and they lift their voice. And it's like, you should never tell them no. And this is why it will never work, because you cannot, from the White House or from Trudeau's mansion or whatever it is, you cannot decide how I raise my children. And we don't have the kind of balanced oversight. Something I love about the Canadian political system is, for Canada, resistance is considered loyalty. Like in the political structure, me telling you, no, you're freaking wrong. Like you could not be more wrong about this is a sign, is a display, a symptom of loyalty. It's loyalty for me to reject your proposition and tell you why. It's something I love about it.
The parliamentary system. Yeah, it's definitely got a lot of benefits.
So that said, it will never work in the dog training industry because there's it's not like plumbing, where you can just say like, hey, in every case, if you don't put something over the spigot, it freezes and it breaks and it leaks water into your house. You see what I'm saying?
No, yeah. I would agree. I guess I don't disagree with anything in there. The way that I might frame it a little bit differently, where I would say that if you compare it to parenting, it doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, would kind of be the way that I would put it, where it's there are definitely similarities, and certainly in terms of the necessity of amending your style to account for the being that's in front of you. That's huge. The reality that mammals and most animals, to include fish, which is what Stephanie, my business partner, did her PhD on. She trained rainbow trout, will move toward reward and away from punishment. You'll do more things that you get rewarded for, and fewer things that you get punished for. That is pretty basic. And to argue against that, to me, is fairly ridiculous. I think where I take issue with anthropomorphization is
nice little $5 word.
Is in trying to is in when people try to map human thoughts and human emotions onto the canine that's in front of them, right? So my dog is reactive. Oh, he reacts to men in hats with beards because one time a man in a hat with a beard flicked him on the nose when he was 4 or when he 4 months or whatever. And now and I'm like, okay, you have no idea. It could be that men in hats with beards put off a pheromone because of the hat and the beard that you have no idea exists, and your dog, I mean, obviously that's not the case, but like there's a million different reasons why your dog might be doing what it's doing. The fact of the matter is that it's reacting to that particular trigger. The reason, like why, right? It doesn't really matter, nor should it, because we're not dogs. Like we can't put ourselves into that dog's head and understand what that dog is thinking. I mean, one of my buddies made a really good point where he brings it up with his clients. Sometimes the dog is acting a certain way and the client is trying to put a reason to it or whatever else. And he just goes, do you ever think your dog might have a headache?
Yeah. Wrench goes right in the wheel.
You don't know. Like, you have no idea. It's a dog. It can't tell you. So that would be where I guess that would be where I would part with the anthropomorphization part. But I don't think that that's what you meant to begin with. You were talking more along the lines of
you're actually exactly where I'm going.
Discipline.
You're exactly where I'm going. Like when he says, you ever think you might have a headache? It's like, oh man, wrench in the wheel. And it's like, right, there are a lot of pieces to this, man. And that's actually exactly why I'm not scared of anthropomorphization. It's like, there are a billion reasons why you do what you do. And a lot of them, like you went to therapy, I've done therapy. Like a lot of them, you don't even freaking know.
Sure.
You got to peel that crap back. Let me ask you, sir, ma'am, if you don't know why you act why you do, and you think your little precious baby is exactly like you, which is, of course, like all kinds of bias, like you see what you want to see. And we can get into it more in a bit, but like this is part of why rescue can be a nightmare. It's like because people see themselves, and it's like, ma'am, sir, if you had to go to years of therapy to understand that your bad relationship with your dad was why you've been, choosing bad partners for 15 years, like if you don't understand you, good luck using you to understand your dog. And it's like, I love what you brought up about the hats and beards, because let me try this on for size. Okay, for dogs, scent is everything, right? Anywhere from 5,000 to 100,000% greater sense of smell than you have. Human beings don't even fully understand how the olfactory system works for a dog. We don't even understand it. Like, wrap your brain around that for a second. We don't even understand fully how it works, let alone how sensitive it is. So think about this. Why does your dog go around lifting its leg and peeing on things? Well, to mark territory. We've tracked the migration patterns of wolves before, and we find that they pretty much stay in their own confined spaces. They stay where their family, their little pack resides. Okay, so that said, what if the guy wearing a hat with a beard has a very strong scent because his beard holds scent and he's been wearing that hat for weeks and he hasn't washed the dang thing? And the dog just knows that guy gives off crap tons of scent. Now, is that why the dog is acting this way? Yeah, fair chance not. It's probably has something to do with the fact that you pet it to calm it down. Like you pet little fluffy crazyson, you pet him to get him to calm down. And truth be told, you've been training him to be psycho for months this way. But there are all kinds of tiny details. And that's why I love what you brought up, the hat and the beard thing. It's like, well, what if it's a scent thing? What if he's territorial and here this guy comes walking, bringing crap tons of scent with him, and your dog has a problem with that? And I love what you said, because it's not always important to understand why. And it's not because it's not important to understand why. It's because fat chance you're going to figure that out correctly. I mean, good freaking luck, pal. We're talking about a complex being. But here's what we do know. It's the basic truths. And lately I've been learning that the people that are better than you at dog training, sometimes they don't know this super complex stuff that you don't know. They're just way better at the basics than you. And here are the basic truths. What is not advantageous, what you don't enjoy, you will run from. What you enjoy, you will run to. When you put your hand on a cast iron pot that's been on the stove a little too long, I mean, that sucker's burning all over, right? When you grab that thing and it burns your hand, you take your hand off of it. Why? Not because the pot is hot, but because the air is not. If the whole house is on fire and the air is 300 degrees, what does it matter if you're touching the cast iron pot or your hand is in the air? It won't matter to you. That's my point. It's like we have to structure feedback systems such that the dog is incentivized to believe a certain way. And I love that you bring up fundamentals. Like a dog runs from what sucks and then runs to what doesn't. I wanna come back to some of your greatest hits. If you ever want to truly understand how dogs and humans are not the same, it's got 109 hits here, 109 reactions. Watch your dog run shin first into a trailer hitch and act like nothing happened. I mean, we're really not the same.
I wrote that because I literally had just watched a dog do it. And I said to myself, we are not the same. Because I don't know if you've ever if you've ever cranked your shin on a trailer hitch. Like, I've never been shot, but I think I would prefer it.
Yeah, fair.
There's pretty much nothing worse. And meanwhile, I watched a dog run full speed into a trailer hitch with her shin, and it went bing, and
doesn't care.
And she just kept going like
oops,
nothing had even happened. And yeah, like, look, the fact of the matter is that we're not the same. Like, did that hurt her? I'm sure it hurt her. I would bet that it hurt in some way. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it didn't. But the fact is that so much of how we react to things like pain is dependent on the way we think, on our own ability to have language, the ability to ruminate, the ability to suffer in terms of, if your pain and suffering are not necessarily always intertwined with one another. And a lot of suffering when it comes to pain is wishing that the pain were another way, were a different way, rather than just accepting that the pain is there. This is something that people who experience chronic pain can learn to deal with through various different techniques like meditation and so on, and actually separating the pain from the suffering. And so, is it possible that the dog feels the pain and just doesn't feel the suffering from it in the same way? That's not to say that dogs can't suffer. Of course they can.
Sure, of course,
but it doesn't, we don't know. Like, it doesn't necessarily act in exactly the same way as it does with us. So, why is it like that? Again, I don't know. Is it extremely different than the way a human would react to the exact same situation? Yes.
Right.
And I think that's an important thing for us to keep in mind, is that a human and a dog can be put into the exact same situation with the exact same stimulus
differently,
and act completely differently in that situation, and feel completely differently in that situation.
And that is, of course, where the anthropomorphizing ends. It's like, we can use some psychology to try to bring some light to how dogs act, why they act. Sure. And basic principles are identical. We will seek comfort. We will run away from emotional or physical pain. That's true. You won't see the dog back up and go, huh, and run a little scientific experiment on if it hurts every time, and, repeatedly bang their shin and take notes and ask the other dogs, hey, come bang your shin. Let's find out if trailer hitches are bad for shins here, And I don't know, maybe that's a sign of higher intelligence. I'm kidding, but maybe the fact that they don't study something that's stupid, that's where the anthropomorphizing ends, is we aren't the same, and thank God for it. Like, you don't see dogs out in the middle of traffic tweaking off of, well, I better not go there. So I want to ask you, I want to bring this up because you have no problem using aversives, and neither do I. I have no problem using punishment. I think it's, Robert Cabral once said, the real science-based dog trainers are the ones using all four quadrants. Those are the real dog trainers, the real science-based dog trainers. And for those that are listening that don't know the 4 quadrants, operant conditioning, it's called operant conditioning, breaks down this way. There are 4 quadrants that break down punishment and reinforcement. Punishment is to get rid of a behavior. Reinforcement is to increase frequency of behavior. And of course, you and I know the hot dogs and hugs, which is how I will address them forever. Thank you for that gem. By the way, put it on a t-shirt. I guarantee that's going to sell.
I didn't come up with that. I heard that somewhere, and I've now
screw it. I'd
appropriated
bootleg
it. So
it anyway
I don't want
if
to
I
give
were
the
you.
impression that that was mine.
That's hilarious. So, but the hot dogs and hugs people will say that you shouldn't punish a dog. And when we started talking, when the conversation of methodology came up in this conversation, the first thing, do you know the first thing you brought up when methodology came up, just for a split second? Do you know the first thing you mentioned?
No.
First thing you mentioned was markers and treats.
Oh, yeah.
The first thing you said was markers, the power of markers and the power of using food. And this is a misunderstanding that, quote, balanced dog trainers, that we bring a dog in and just beat them until they behave. And that's not how it works at all. I want you to speak to the use of punishment and how it's constructively used, because you're well versed on this.
So I think intent always matters. I can step on your foot in more than one way. I can accidentally step on your foot and say, I'm sorry, man, I didn't mean to do that. That was an accident. Or I can stomp on your foot and try to break your toe. Both of those things are stepping on your foot. My intent was completely different in each of those situations.
Fair.
When I train a dog, when I train a client to train their dog, the intent is always to build the relationship. That's the first principle, right? What I want, so I believe that dogs lead their best lives when we enjoy living with them.
Sure.
If we don't enjoy living with our dog will not lead its best life.
Man,
and
that's very well put. Hold on. Let me just hang on for that second. Say that at one more time for me.
So dogs lead their best lives. If our goal is to have a dog lead its best life, which that is my overriding value in dog training, is that I want the dog to lead its best life. But the way that dog leads its best life is by creating a situation where the human enjoys living with that dog. If the human doesn't enjoy living with that dog cannot live its best life. It's not possible, because its life and the quality of its life is so dependent on the human that it lives with.
And for those that might not understand the utility of what you're saying, it's like, if you don't like the dog stays up every time you have company. If you don't like the dog, it's never going on a hike with you. It's never going on vacation with you. You do not walk this thing. Like, some people only, and you could probably speak to this as well as a professional trainer. Like, I work with clients all the time, and when I'm first talking to them, like, how often do you walk their dog? And they pause, and I go, well, that's probably because they walk like crap. Don't feel bad. We'll fix the walking, and then you'll probably walk them all the time.
And their relationship improves materially at that point.
Yeah. So, like, this is a utilitarian standpoint for you. Is
100%.
like, I love that. Okay, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so that is my overriding intent. When I come into a situation, my goal is to have that dog lead its best life. And the secondary goal in there is to have the human enjoy living with the dog, which improves the human's life too. And I get a charge out of both of those things. I mean, I've talked a lot now about having gone from my previous life to my new life here. And honestly, the ability to help people themselves lead a better, more fulfilling life it's a real core thing.
It's a primary motivator.
I love it. And it's why I keep doing this. It's a huge, I shouldn't say that. It's a huge driver in why I keep doing this and why I want to keep doing this. And so when you come into a situation where your intention is to build that relationship, not harm that relationship, well, that all of a sudden, like, that frames how you approach the training overall, right? If I were to slap a prong collar on and just start yanking and cranking and teaching the client to, just come down on the dog and hit it with the leash and whatever, like,
yeah,
that's not building that relationship. That's harming that relationship.
That's right.
So the
That's right.
first thing that you need to do is start to build that relationship and build the relationships, just like relationships between humans. Your relationship with your dog is predicated on your ability to communicate. You cannot have a relationship with something you can't communicate with.
You're spot on now, dude. You're preaching. I know you're not religious, but you're preaching right now.
And so it's yeah, like, so it's, I lost my train of thought there. What we're trying to do by building that relationship, we're trying, and the communication is what I was getting at, is that you need to start building that foundation, and that foundation starts with reward. I want the dog to understand how it can know when it's done the right thing, right? So the first thing we do is we start with rewards and markers, and we teach the dog when it's done the right thing. And once it knows what the right thing to do is, now we can start imposing consequences for not doing the right thing. And again, I don't impose consequences for making a mistake. If you're teaching a dog a down and you've just finished teaching the sit, the fact is, and this is for anyone who's ever done IGP and you've been training the down in motion, and now you want to train the sit in motion, guess what? You're going to get 100 downs in motion when you're trying to do that sit in motion. And it's the same thing if you're training a dog, to down and sit, and you ask for a down and it gives you a sit by accident because it thinks that that's what you've asked for, because dogs don't speak English and they just react to the sounds that are coming out of our mouth.
That's right.
I personally, some do, and I'm not going to say they're wrong, but I don't punish for that. I will say nope, and sorry, I don't positively punish for that. I will negatively punish for that.
It's true.
Where nope, and you're not going to get the treat. Right.
That's right.
Both of those things have been shown to have, similar cortisol effects and so on the dog. So it's not that one is better than the other. It's just that it's a different way of doing it.
Of course.
And so I don't impose a positive punishment for that. But for instance, if we're teaching a long down and the dog knows what a down is, and the dog knows that the rule is when you say down, you go into a down and you don't move. Because we've trained that over and over and over and over again. Now, when the dog breaks the down, no, correct, down, and the dog goes back into a down. So the dog starts to learn that, okay, when I break the position, there's a consequence. If I just do the wrong thing, I don't want to inhibit the dog from trying. I want the dog to offer up behaviors. I want the dog to try.
It can't be scared of getting it wrong.
Afraid of getting it wrong. I can't teach you to do a new thing by punishing you when you don't do the new thing. You're just going to shut down and not do it. Right?
That's right.
So that's where these pure positive people go so wrong, is that, it's the only argument they can defeat is the straw man argument of us coming in and abusing these dogs, which it couldn't possibly be further from the case. What's actually the case is that we structure it in such a way that the dog understands what it's being rewarded for and what it's being punished for. And the example I use to every one of my clients is that on their way to my training center, they were subject to punishment the entire way there. If they speed, they are subject to getting pulled over and given a ticket. But they weren't afraid the entire time they drove to my place.
That's right.
Because there was a speed limit sign, and they knew what the speed limit was, and they knew what the rules were, and they knew what the consequence was if they broke the rule. Now, if they were on their way to our house or our training center, and at any given point in time, at any point along the route, for any reason, a cop could jump out from the bushes, pull them over, and give them a $50,000 fine for no reason, and maybe it'll happen 2 or 3 times on the way there.
Right.
Guess what? Are they going to leave their house?
No way, man.
They're going to shut shut
That's
down,
freaking
right? We
tired.
talk
Yeah,
about dogs.
that's so terrifying.
We talk about dogs shutting down. You shut a dog down when you punish the dog and don't give it a way to get out, where it doesn't understand why this bad thing is happening to it.
Yeah.
When you punish a dog for a thing that it knows, you empower that dog. You've seen it. We've all seen it. When you have a dog that starts to understand the rules
of the game,
that dog goes from being the dog
out.
that came out onto your field the first time with its tail down, its ears back, hunched, slinking around, scared. 3 sessions later, that dog is out on the field, scorpion tail, ears up, chest up, walking around like it's, king of the castle.
Yeah.
And shockingly, that's after having
been
punished for various whatever the behavior is, right?
Yeah.
And so the concerns that they have are not necessarily valid when it comes to actually applying them to the way that the thing they don't like is used in the real world. They're disconnected. But here's the thing. I don't think that's a secret to them. I think they know that. I don't think this is a logical discussion. This is
very emotional, it would appear.
It's emotional. It's you can't reason someone out of a position they've arrived at through emotion.
Oh my gosh, right? I forget where I first heard that, but that's so good.
But you just can't. And they clearly have arrived at it through emotion, because if you take a reasoned approach to it and you understand what you're looking at, and the way animals work in the real world, if you've ever seen any animals ever interact with one another ever, 0 of them have conversations with one another about their feelings, aside from us.
Yeah.
Right? So they understand physicality and they understand food.
Yeah.
And so that's how we train them most effectively.
And you can speak to this very well because you're a breeder. Like, you watch mom rear her puppies. And good luck understanding dogs better than dogs understand dogs. Well, good freaking luck, man. I mean, I know you've got 38,000. You got the entire alphabet after your name, but like, have you ever been a dog? Well, then, sit down, take a back seat. This is the same. And I was talking to Stephanie about this. It's like, it's wild when you, okay, I'm just going to say it because I'm not scared. It's like seeing white people tell black people what it's like to be black. And I see I see more ladies do it than men. It's not necessarily that it is always ladies, but I see these white ladies like preaching about what it's like to be black in America. And then I see black Americans, African Americans, because technically it's a nationality thing. But so I see black Americans talking about, no, my experience has been this. And I'll see a white person tell them, no, that's not it at all. I'll see a judge tell a wife who's getting a divorce, no, I don't think those terms are good for you. I think we need to go back, and I think we need to change these terms a bit. No, Your Honor, I'm happy with these. I'm amenable to these terms. No, sit down, dumb woman. I, the judge, the man, will tell you what you need. I see no difference between humans who think they understand dogs better than dogs understand dogs. Well, no, precious mommy dog, who will punish her young? No, don't you know that these rigged studies have told us that you would be better off if you never punished your dog? And obviously you hear it, and it's a total freaking crock. Something you said very well that I loved, and I heard it vocalized. I heard it vocalized by actually a minister once. He said, "You never punish for mistakes, only for rebellion." And Jeff Gelman, who's a relatively polarizing figure in the dog training community, but he said it's non-compliant, it's correction, punishment for non-compliance of a known behavior. You know what you're doing, and so you can adequately be punished for it. Now that's also, and you know this as a professional, I'd like you to talk about it a bit. Behavior modification and obedience training are different. The way you teach a dog, we don't act that way, sir, is very different from how you teach them to collaboratively learn with you. I mean, obedience training and by extension, competition obedience is very play driven. But teaching a dog, we don't bite the neighbor, different subject entirely. You don't show up when the dog's like about to bite you. At least I don't. And maybe we disagree, and I'd love to hear from you on this. When I have a dog who wants to fricking eat my lunch, I don't pull out pieces of hot dogs and go, "Oh, but I'm a nice guy." That dog doesn't need to be rewarded. That dog needs to be humbled. That dog needs to understand we don't act like that. That's garbage. You're going to get yourself killed, because it's like, who's going to see their kid running into traffic and go, "Oh, come on, little Jimmy, don't do that." You're going to scream, "Son, no!" You're going to get hit. That scream's going to scare that kid, but he's not going to die. So I'd love to hear you speak to the difference, because you do both, of how punishment's used in behavior modification training and how it's used in obedience training.
So you can train in behaviors using reward. You can't extinguish, you can train in desired behaviors using reward. You can't extinguish undesired behaviors using reward.
Right.
You can sometimes replace an undesired behavior with a more desired behavior using reward, right?
Yeah.
If you take the example of dog is going crazy at the door, and you want, instead you recondition the dog such that the doorbell means go to your place bed.
That's right.
And you can do that through reward.
Yeah.
That gives the dog something else to do. It doesn't extinguish the behavior that you didn't like in the first place. If you take that place bet away and you don't have that option, the dog is still gonna bark at the door. I prefer to take the approach of, and sorry, I swear, I know I haven't heard you swear yet, so you haven't, but I have a no asshole policy. I would rather teach a dog not to be an asshole than to have to replace being an asshole with a different behavior. Like, I want a dog to just be able to exist in a given situation and, look at other dogs, look at other people, and be totally relaxed and totally fine. So, if you have, like, taking out the most extreme, handler aggression type cases where that's a whole other thing. And honestly, people wouldn't really want to see that behind the scenes process. And there's a reason a lot of it doesn't get put online.
Yeah.
But if we just talk about, a dog reactive, on leash dog reactive dog, I would rather have a situation where I can take that dog out, have it on the leash, and have it just exist on that leash than to have to constantly have it staring at me, pumping treats into its face the whole time.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And so does that mean that I take a dog, stand 3 feet away from another dog, let them go crazy, and then fry a dog at 100 on the eco? No, of course not. Right? Like, absolutely not. You find the threshold, you reward the good behavior, and you punish the bad behavior. It's the same, it's the yin and the yang, right? So you get to, in this instance, you find the spot at which the dog is going to react. Maybe you move a little bit further back from that so the dog is not reacting. You reward the behaviors you want. You move in. Dog, the 4 L's: look, lock, load, launch. I don't punish on look. I punish on lock. And so, and again, I didn't come up with that. I don't want people to think I did. I heard it somewhere and I've stolen it and I use it. And if I knew who invented it, I would give credit. But the 4 L's of reactivity: look, lock, load, and launch. I love that. I use it all the time. It's fantastic. And so, the dog looks, that's fine. The dog walks, not fine. Hey, check, back on me, right? And then dog's doing the right thing. I can reward the dog a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so, you're playing both sides of it. Now, this is a very, simplified example of how the process works, of course, but that's the idea. It's like, it's not a matter of just going out there and hauling off on the dog. If you let the dog get into the load and launch phase, the level of your correction is going to have to rise
skyrocket
to such a level that you know, to stop that behavior. You don't want to get to that point. So
that's right.
I'm always trying to minimize the amount of conflict and trying to find a level that you can deliver a correction where you don't necessarily need to take it that high, but it's still enough to stop the behavior. But that at the end of the day is the definition of an effective punishment, right? You know, punishments are always, it's self-regulating. You know your punishment was effective if it stops the behavior you wanted it to stop. If it doesn't, you know that your punishment wasn't strong enough. It's like,
it's built in.
That's just the way it works.
Yeah, and that's the goal of punishment is you just want a behavior to stop. And the moment, by the way, the moment the behavior stops, you can reward from one of two ways. Either one, you can negatively reinforce, stop punishing. Or you can positively reinforce. You can give food, give the dog likes to bite or tug or anything. You can give the dog a bite. You know, the idea here is, okay,
love.
now
Some dogs will take love just as happily as anything
personal
else.
affection, you know, what I've heard called personal play, like that stuff's huge. And it's another one of your greatest hits. Leashes are aversive. Flat collars are aversive. Halties are aversive. No pull harnesses are aversive. Like it or not, you use aversives, so you might as well use the ones that work.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is that those are all aversive tools, right? A dog.
I mean, you force the dog to live with you. Why don't you just open the door and let it run?
Let it run outside. You got a fence. Like, dogs don't live in fences. That's ridiculous, right? Like that's aversive. Like,
why would you force an animal to live with you that wants to run free? Dang it.
Yeah, I mean, oh, you know, you think your dog likes being led around by the neck on a leash? Like, no. Can you give a collar check with a flat collar? Yeah, you can crush the trachea doing it at the same time, right? You know, dog goes running out as on a halty and goes running out to the end of its leash, and its head snaps down to the ground, and you injure its cervical vertebrae. You're gonna tell me that that's not a punishment, right?
Yeah,
that is. The dog, you're allowing the dog to positively punish itself for doing the behavior that you don't want it to do.
Yeah.
All it's doing is taking, you're just taking the onus off the handler and allowing the tool to do the work that you could be doing yourself.
That's right.
In a much safer way. Same goes for no pull harnesses. Look, if you're walking a dog and that dog is hooked up on its chest and it starts running off and it gets yanked off its feet and spun around and it's twisting its shoulders. Again, you're going to tell me you're not punishing the dog for doing the thing that you didn't want it to do? Of course you are. You might not realize that that's what you're doing, but at the end of the day, it is no different, zero difference between doing that and me giving a collar correction on a prong collar. You know what sorry, that's not true. There is a difference. The difference is that I can use less force.
That's right.
That's the difference. Right. I can deliver the appropriate information using less force in a safe and effective way that's going to build the dog up rather than allow this dog to continue running feral on the end of a leash, not knowing what the rules are, but hitting the end of the leash and slamming its head into the ground or getting spun around by, you've wired me up now. I hate those tools. And it's like, you know, we have these tools that actually work. Prong collars work. E-collars work. They're humane, they're effective, they train dogs well, they save dogs' lives, and they allow people to live a life with their dog that they otherwise would never be able to achieve.
Yeah.
And so I get really passionate about that because those tools allow dogs to lead their best lives. And when people come out and want to ban these tools, we see the effects everywhere that it's happened, right? More dogs getting put down because the fact of the matter is that the hard dogs, the strong dogs, the ones that we like, don't give a shit about your love.
That's
right. For the most part, they don't care. The good dogs, the ones that I enjoy, they care. They want to please you a bit, but if you're not happy, like they're like, what do I care? I'm my own man, right? Like that's the kind of dog that I like. And that's the kind of dog that, you know, can you train that dog with reward? Absolutely. And that's like, you will,
and you do,
you know, and you do, but can you stop that dog from wanting to eat your neighbor with a reward, I'm sorry, no.
It feels predatory. At some point, it feels predatory. Let me explain what I mean. Like, this is not your multi-poo. Some people are going to be pissed when they hear this. Some of you, your dog only likes you because it realizes it has no shot at survival without you. Not because it likes you. I like a dog that feels confident that they could run it alone, that they don't need me. That dog is respect driven. I have to earn that dog's respect. That dog will not simply fall in line because I gave it the wrong look. No. That dog's going to fight me a little bit. I like that. If you met my wife, I didn't marry some meek, getting mowed over by everybody's opinions. My wife's a fighter. Why? I wanted someone tough. I'm about to raise I'm raising 2 people with this chick. I need someone tough. I want a dog that's tough. Why? I want a dog that's got some spirit and some drive. I want a dog that if I'm wrong is going to check me a little bit. And those dogs, Bart says very well. I think this is a video excerpt from his new online silver school. Bart says very well that this very small internet crowd that believes that punishment should never be used, they just don't believe that those dogs belong on planet Earth. They believe these dogs need to be dead. And that's hard to hear, but that's the truth. Some of these dogs can't be safely owned if you can't punish them for being wrong. And
they don't understand that there's people who prefer that type of dog. Right.
Well, and the other thing is your dog, they don't, the human doesn't understand. There are people who prefer like the pushy kind of dog. Like I want a dog that's going to drive a bit. I want a dog that's going to, I don't know. I think it's awesome. Like a dog that's got some drive behind them. Dude, I get excited when dogs like that come in for board and train. And I was just yesterday, I posted a picture of Axel, this Rottweiler. And he was actually one of the reasons why I got a dog from you guys. Like, he was the first dog I had seen come in a while that just like, he just started showing me this stuff. He would bark on his own, but he wasn't a nervous barker. He just was doing it for fun. So we were able to shape like a good bark and hold, like with relative ease. So like, that's what made me go, I got to do this, man. Another one of your greatest hits, cruelty resides in the trainer, not in the tool.
It goes back to intent.
That's right. You were saying like, I can stomp on your foot and intentionally break your toes.
Or I can step on your foot accidentally.
Yeah. And the other thing is this, like, try being trapped in a country where you don't understand the language and no one takes the time to explain a thing to you. You're guessing. And here's the thing. One day society will punish behavior with lethal injection. And I don't know about for you guys, but in the States, like I think Texas is a 1-bite state, meaning if there's 1 bite, it doesn't always happen, but a judge can order the dog be euthanized from just 1 bite. And then good luck, man. So it's like either I'm going to punish them or the state will, but I will be kind. I will have rules. I will have a structure where the dog can win. But by the time that backroom injection comes into the conversation, there's no winning scenario here, man. There's no way out of this. I want you to just pull back the curtain just a little bit without going too deep into this. How is e-collar conditioning begun? Everybody thinks you just strap a collar on a dog, wait till they're bad, and you fry them. It's do it right or hate your life, pal. How does this begin? How about you just break their brains and tell them how sweet and kind and nice e-collar conditioning begins?
Yeah, and again, I'll just preface by saying, like, don't come to me to learn to train by an e-collar online. Like, there's really good resources online.
Sure, yeah.
For I am an e-collar trainer. I teach my clients how to train by e-collar. I want to preface that just because I think people will take advice sometimes from places where it might not be merited. Not that I'm not, but anyway, all that being said, I condition the e-collar on fairly low levels, and I start with the recall. I start training the recall first on a 5 or 6 foot lead with a prong collar, and condition the dog to. There's various different parts to it. I have kind of a game that I play where I ask for the recall, and then I get the dog to beat the check to create a quick spin and a sprint. And then I kind of back chain from having the last 3 or 4 steps of the recall out to a long line, with the theory being that if the dog is sprinting in those last 3 or 4 steps, that when you ask for the recall from further away, the dog is going to begin the sprint from further away and then continue it on the way in. It's worked so far, so that's what I go with. And then once the dog understands the long line recall and is regularly a recall, my definition of a recall, we need to talk operational definitions of any command. So my definition of a recall is 100% of the time under any distraction on the first command. When I ask for a recall, the dog spins on its haunches away from whatever it's doing and sprints back to me, and then ends up either in a sit in front or swing to a heel, whatever you've decided to train. So that's my operational definition of a recall. Once the dog is pretty close to meeting that operational definition on a long line, I'll move to the e-collar. And with the e-collar, I use negative reward along with positive reward when the dog comes in. So I'll set it usually at, and people will do this differently. Ivan Balabanov uses quite high level e-collar for this. I use lower level, and people will argue about it. I say use what works. So let's say out of 100, let's say it's at 10. I'll start to stim. And I like to use continuous, and I pulse it like a heartbeat. And by using continuous, I find I can use a lower level than using Nick. If you're using Nick, you have to use quite a bit of a higher level.
Right.
And I'll stim, and I'll start stimming before I ask for the recall, and then I'll say come. And as soon as the dog comes and starts moving towards me, I stop the stim. If the dog veers off the path, the stim starts again. So it's like a light switch. You turn on the light switch, and when the dog moves towards you, you turn it off. And then if the dog veers off, you turn it back on again. And then when I see that the dog has made the decision to come all the way in, I'll mark that and reward with positive reward when the dog arrives at me. So
so you're saying you don't beat them with hammers?
Shockingly not.
You mean you don't like poison them with arsenic?
No, and more than that, I mean, I think what people really will like, the number of times I've had a client come in and say, I tried the e-collar, but it didn't work.
Sheesh.
And that's so, just so that we're all on the same page, that's not a thing. Like, I tried the e-collar and it didn't work.
You use it right?
Yeah, that's just not a thing. Like it means that I didn't use the e-collar the way the e-collar is meant to be used. That's correct. And I didn't take the time to train it properly. It is not a remote control for dogs. It just doesn't work that way. It's a conditioned tool that you have to use properly, or you can break the dog permanently. And so that the reason that I preface this whole part with, find someone to teach you how to do this is, don't take the word of someone on a podcast or the method of someone on a podcast. Don't go online and find someone using an e-collar and learn from their YouTube video on how to do it. I'm begging you to please not do that, because the e-collar is the one tool that I truly believe you need to go stand with someone who knows how to use it and have that person teach you to use it properly. Short of that, all we're doing is accelerating the eventual ban of these incredibly useful tools.
Yeah. I think that they're the most useful thing since the leash. I mean,
I agree. I mean, it is a leash. It's an invisible leash at the end of the day. When it's conditioned properly, it gives you an invisible 3/4 mile long leash.
And some people don't realize, like that the depth to which you can condition dogs on this. I mean, there are a lot of trainers that they'll nick once if they want to sit, they'll nick twice if they want to down, and they'll click and hold if they want to recall. Like, just open your mind for a second. Like, there's an unbelievable amount of possibilities on this tool, and it can
So
be.
that would be just so that I know you know this, but just so that anyone who's listening is aware, that would be basically, that would be a bit of a different thing than the way I explained it, where I'm using it as an aversive tool. That way would be more using it as a replacement for a command. So it would
Correct,
be
yeah.
you would condition it in a different way. You would essentially replace either your hand signal or your verbal cue with the cue from the e-collar, and that can be done too. Like, there's 100 different ways to use the e-collar effectively. And I want to just one thing, because we're talking about it, and this is a passionate subject of mine.
Yeah,
people need to understand what an e-collar is.
Speak to that.
I've heard it called, you hear it called a shock collar all the time. And I mean, even some like Tom Davis, who does the No Bad Dog podcast, I think he has been a great benefit to the balanced dog trainer community. Excellent at marketing himself and the balanced dog training. And did an interview with Stephanie, so we got certainly Stephanie got to know him a little bit. And sorry, I have a dog who's come in here who's decided she's going to interrupt the interview.
You're totally fine.
And even him, I saw him use the term shock collar in one of his posts, and I commented because I don't think that anybody, I don't care whether the reason you're doing it is for SEO and to get, to get it to be picked up in more of the search terms or whatever else. I don't believe that anybody who's in favor of the e-collar should ever refer to it as a shock collar,
because they're not the same thing.
They're not the same thing. I don't know frankly what a shock collar is.
It goes back to like the earliest form. Well, it goes back to the earliest form of an e-collar for like hunters. And we could talk about the difference between the kind of stem you get, on an e-collar or on a TENS unit, and what happens when you
so you hit on exactly, that was the one last thing that I wanted to say, is essentially what an e-collar is a TENS unit that goes on the dog's neck. So anyone who's ever been to a physiotherapist where they put that pad on you, or like the Dr. Ho machine or whatever else, like that's what it is on a dog's neck. So I just want to be super clear. There is no shock being given.
Right.
And nobody should call it a shock collar unless your goal is to get this tool banned.
Yeah. And I've heard people, they were like, my dog, they came to me and they were talking crap about their former trainer, which, when you're trying to sell this person, because we still run a business, it's advantageous for you that they're talking crap about their last trainer. But you always hear this and go, well, that could be me in a month. Who knows? I don't know this person. Like, they could
never talk crap about other trainers.
Yeah, they could be nut job,
I should say that's not true. I never talk crap about other trainers to my clients when they come to see me. I'll talk crap about pure positive trainers on Facebook all day long.
Oh yeah, you and I when you said that, I was like, I know you will of some, but I know what you're saying too.
Yeah, I should clarify there.
I'm with you.
I won't. If a client comes to me and starts, bitching about their previous trainer, it's not something that I engage with, because, like you said, that could be me.
You could be talking crap about me in a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I had someone that came to me and they said, they put that shock collar on my dog, and my dog had burn marks, and on the inside I'm laughing, and I'm like, no, it didn't. Maybe your dog is allergic to nickel, which the contacts have nickel in them. And so maybe your dog had an allergic reaction to nickel. Maybe the collar was too tight for more than, 5 or 6
Or it was a
hours.
board and train and they left the collar on for too long. That can happen, if we're being honest. That's why you've got to be really careful about where you send your dog for a board and train.
That's right. Yeah. Ask all the questions. And any board and train operator won't be frustrated that you want to know about where you're sending your dog. Now,
absolutely,
be prepared to hear answers that are different from your home. I've had people that they were like, how much time will my dog spend in the kennel? Oh, like 20 hours.
At
what?
least,
and it's like, here's what you need to understand. One, I do not treat your dog how you treat your dog when they're here. You are part of the problem. One of your greatest hits, let me see if I can find it here. it says something like everything your dog does wrong is your own fault. Own it. You're part of your dog's problem. Second thing is this: your dog has to get more sleep than you have to get. They are not humans. They can't operate on 8 hours in a night. That's not how your dog works. When you go to work and you look at your cute little camera of your doggy, what's your dog doing on the couch when you're gone? Sleeping. Second thing is this: if you want your dog's behavior to change, they need every moment of their day to be structured if a board and train's going to work. And so, your dog's not going to be left in there long enough to pee or poop on itself. No. But people are appalled when they find out, like, wait, your dog's not just going to be out 24/7. My dog's not just going to be out 24/7. No, that's too much freedom for your dog right now. Your dog can't handle all that. But they were like,
I think the other thing that people need to understand that they don't necessarily consider as well is we talk about anthropomorphization, right? And we start thinking, how would I feel if I got stuck in a cage for 20 hours? What people need to get is like, your dog is not in its crate wishing it were somewhere else. So much of what we think in any given situation is dependent on the fact that we have language and we talk to ourselves and we have the ability to wish that we were somewhere else doing something different. Dogs they not only don't speak English, like they don't have the concept of language. They don't ruminate. They don't, sit in there wishing that they were somewhere else. They're present. Do they have preferences? Of course. In the moment, of course. Will a dog choose to be one place over another? Of course. But when it is doing a thing, it's not spending its time pining, being like, oh, I wish I was at home on the couch right now. That would be really nice.
Yeah.
Right. They don't have that higher order level of thought. They're not thinking that way. It's not as harmful psychologically to a dog as it would be to a human put in the same situation. We have to stop anthropomorphizing dogs in that way, I would argue.
Of course, 100% agreed. Yeah, definitely the limits are, listen, if you're going to anthropomorphize, which I'm not personally scared of, but I'll 100% come out with you on this limb here. Like, you at least need to admit where we're different. Do you think your dog needs to wear a coat when it's cold outside if it's got an actual coat? Like, I'm not talking about like these, shivering chihuahuas that shouldn't be in these, Colorado, Ontario climates. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about that. But we at least need to admit, like, well, let me ask, is your dog a human? Well, no. Okay. Well, then there's some things that are different. That's for dang sure. But I think part of it goes back to like the original e-collar uses, old e-collars for hunting use, these things had like 8 settings or like 3 settings, and so people will go, my dog, they came back with burn marks. And I go, real fast, how many settings does your collar have? I think like 8. And I go, well, that's part of your problem. It's like, because where your 1 begins might be 30 on mine. And your 8 might be where my 100 is. I was like, I can get down to levels that you can't get, because I'll tell people, my collar goes, I use the e-collar technologies. My collar goes up to 100. And they go, no. It doesn't. It's not that it goes really high. It goes really low. It has a lot of opportunities way down there. And I think people like lose their freaking minds when they think of e-collars and they go, I don't want to do that. And I've told people, listen, I can off-leash train your dog without an e-collar. That's not that hard for me, but it's going to be really hard for you. It doesn't change my job a whole lot, but it's going to change yours a lot. You talk about how much work you're going to have to put in as an owner. It's going to be a pain in the butt. And I said, but if I come meet with you and I run you through what an e-collar is, how it feels, because I'm going to put that thing, as long as you don't have a pacemaker, I'm going to put that thing on you. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to work with your dog on it. And if you're still averse to it, then I won't use it. Just understand, your job changes. Your job gets a lot harder. Mine doesn't change hardly at all. Mine's very similar. Just your job changes a lot. And never once I put a collar on these people and I find their working level the same way I would a dog.
Yeah.
And I start running them through the first routines I'm going to run their dog through. And they go, oh, well, that's not so bad. And I go, right. It's not what the internet told you it is it? And they go, no, not at all. And it's like, right. let me remind you of this. Those people on the internet have access to the same thing I have access to. They have access to this tool, and they're talking trash about it without having felt it. And they convinced you that it came from the pits of hell and that it's possessed with the demon of the, of Beelzebub. And, you're going to put it on your dog and your, this is what I think about, like all the calculators will divide by 0. The nukes will go off in their silo. Your son will say, Mom, I'm gay. And your husband will leave you. And, the whole world is just going to crash. And realistically, it's really not that bad. And these people have never strapped one on. And I'll tell you, I pull out an e-collar for the first time and I go, all right, I'm going to put this on you. And they go, oh. And I have some people that are fine with me putting it on their dog. And then I pull this collar out and I'm going, all right, I'm going to put it on you. And they go, no, wait, no. And I go, whoa. You're going to let me train your dog for 6 weeks and you're going to let me put this thing on your dog and you don't want me putting it on you? And they go, well, no, isn't it going to hurt? And I go, you're going to let me hurt your dog? And they start thinking and the cogs start turning and they go, well, and I go, it's not going to hurt you. Trust me. You're trusting me with your dog. Trust me with you. And then I'll put it on the owner and I'll put it on first and third finger and we'll find their levels. And then I'll say, I want you to move it down to your palm and I'll find their levels again. They're shocked to find that those levels have changed. Mm-hmm. And then I'll say, now put it on your forearm and I'll get them again at whatever their level was on their hand. And they go, ah! And I'm like, right, it's stronger there, isn't it? And they go, yeah. And I go, yeah, you read the dog, not the dial. Yep. As that collar moves around, what speaks to that dog is going to change, and you have got to read your dog. So one of your greatest hits, genetics creates the stone, training carves the statue, the quality of the statue is limited by the quality of the stone. I want to pivot into breeding because I've got one of your dogs, frankly, and she's a stud. I mean, what a creature she is. And her grip's starting to come out too. Like she gets the tug in the back of her mouth and I can pick that chick up off the ground and she is just not going anywhere. So there are a lot of things I want to ask you for the sake of the audience, because most of my audience are not dog trainers and they're not even working dog people. They're pet dog people, but they could really benefit from hearing how does an owner, and I asked Stephanie this a bit, how does an owner go about finding a breeder they should trust? I know yesterday, if we were having this interview in 6 months, what you posted yesterday or the day before about $1,600 dogs would be in it. Speak to there's a dropout, almost like a dropout in Signal, from a couple $100 to about $3,000. Speak to that a bit for me as someone who's better versed than I am.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think what you're referring to is someone posted some asinine thing about if your local shelter is full and you're buying a $1,600 dog, then you're part of the problem or something like that. And I didn't even, the post itself was just like, I don't argue with that. That's just dumb. Like, of course you're not part of the problem because you bought something different that you wanted more than a shelter dog. Like that's silly. But the thing that really jumped out at me at that is like, I saw the $1,600 and I started thinking to myself, I'm like, in what world is there a $1,600 dog? Like, what does that mean? Now, of course I posted that and like, 4 people came on telling me how wrong I was because they bought their world champion, whatever, for $800. And like, okay, sure. Yes, there are exceptions. Let's just stipulate that. There's exceptions. There's always exceptions. But I'm not going to speak to the exceptions. In general, there's a price category for a rescue dog, which should really be a few $100 in the hundreds of dollars range. And then there's a price category for well-bred, purpose-bred dogs from a reputable breeder. Yeah. And I would say that starts somewhere, let's call it 25. I'm going by Canadian dollars. So let's call it $2,500. I guess that's somewhere around 2,000 American. But realistically, probably a bit higher than that. This was our cheapest litter that we've ever sold at $2,500 a dog. And
I intend to prove that it was a steal.
I mean, look, the market for purebred papered German Shepherds is different than the market
Of
for
course.
mixed breed
Of course.
herders that happen to have a
Bulletproof
crocodile
genetics.
of a Malinois in
Yeah.
the bloodline. Like this litter was significantly more niche than our standard litter would be, so that was the reasoning for it. But
oh, I'm
the
not
fact of
complaining.
no, I mean, hey, look,
That's for dang
it's
sure.
turning out to be a banger of a litter, and so I'm really happy with it. But just back to what we were saying about that golf is that there's really no situation in which anybody should be buying a dog for $1,000, $1,500, because what that means really is that the dog it's a backyard for the most part, in general, with exceptions.
Yeah,
it's a backyard bred dog from someone who's trying to make a few bucks off their litter. They've slapped two nice dogs together, and they've produced
to get the most tricolor everything.
a litter of whatever. And yeah, they might be purebred paper dogs, but here's what I can tell you is that with the health testing that we do, with the food that we feed, with the training that we put the dogs through, like, we still have to pay for that training. It's not like you get it for free just because you're a breeder. With all, like, all of that stuff that we have to put our dogs through, and that doesn't even speak to the cost of importing semen, importing breeding bitches from Europe, all of the ancillary costs that go along with that, the artificial insemination. Now, not everybody's doing AI, and so then your price is going to come down a bit. But like, when you're layering all those things in, like, if we're selling a purebred litter of German Shepherds for less than $3,500 a dog, like, we're losing money on the dogs, especially if you consider the amount of time that goes. Like, I haven't paid myself a penny in 5 years, and I don't make any money out of this business whatsoever. Great business, right? Hey, come to the banker to learn how to run a good business. But that's just the nature of what it is. Like, the amount of money that we've had to plow into this business to get the breeding stock, to get the semen, to do everything right, makes it such that these dogs have a cost to them. And if you're not paying that cost, if you're not paying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for your dog,
then they didn't do it.
Chances are they didn't do any of that stuff. Now, let's say another thing. There are people out there who will sell you the blue-eyed Merle doodle, for $5,000, who also haven't done any of that stuff.
That's right.
I've got a special place in hell for those people. So don't get me wrong. I'm not, I'm not supporting. I'm not saying, like, if you can pay more, you are getting a better dog. That's not true.
Necessarily true. Yeah.
Chances are, though, if you are not paying up, you're not going to be getting a quality dog.
That's right.
With exceptions, of course. Don't at me. But there's always exceptions. And in terms of your initial question was how to go about finding a breeder. Like, with the way the world is now, it's pretty easy to get to know people. Most of the people that we sell dogs to are not people that we've just met for the first time. Or more importantly, there's this weird parasocial relationship that happens in social media where people know you, but you don't know them back. And so the people who the people who tend to apply for our dogs are people who've known us for some time, who've followed us for a while, who know how we work, who know how we operate, our philosophies. And
that was me.
Or people who have been referred by people like you or other people who've followed us for some time, right? So there's those two. It's very rare. It's happened a few times, not many, where someone's like, we have no idea who you are. We just like your dogs and we want to buy one. And then that person actually passes vetting. We have a lot of people that come up to us and want to buy a dog who have no idea what we are, the chances of them passing the vetting process are next to nil. We turn away 85% of people who come to us to buy a dog. Oh yeah, like
good for you.
I never want to take a dog back. I will take any dog back for any reason at any time, but I don't want to. It's not good for the dog. It's terrible for me. And so we do everything we can up front to avoid that. We essentially, you know, if we're not selling to a professional like you, someone who truly knows what they're getting themselves into, if we're selling to someone who's like wanting their first working dog, for instance, or whatever, that conversation that I don't deal with humans. Stephanie gets to deal with them. But that conversation that she has with the potential client, the majority of that conversation is spent trying to convince that person that they don't want the dog that they think they want, that they don't want our dog. And if at the end of that conversation, after having been told all of the things they're going to have to do for the life of the dog, all of the things they're going to have to deal with the dog, all of the things that dog's going to require to live its best life, if they still want one of our dogs at the end of that, have at her. We'll sell you the dog, right? And so I would say for anyone who's looking for a breeder out there, take the time to get to know them. We're all online for the most part.
Yeah.
Like we're all on social media. A lot of the time, like if someone comes to us and they're looking for something in particular, and it's either not what we do, you know, I want a service dog, right? Don't come to us for your PTSD dog. Right. Our dogs are more likely to give you PTSD than help your PTSD.
Fair.
You know, or I want a dog, but we don't have one right now. Usually if you get to know some breeders and you communicate with them by DM, they'll be happy to put you in touch with someone or recommend someone who might have what you're looking for, right?
Sure.
And that's the same with us. You know, if we don't have a dog right now, but I know that another breeder out there does, I'm happy to put them in touch with that other breeder who is looking to move their litter. Someday maybe they'll do the same for me.
So another one of your greatest hits here. How to ensure your puppy application is declined. Number 1, I'm looking for a friend for my other dog /hamster/ferret. Which, to be fair, in the context of this conversation, could be that they're deciding they need a friend for a dog or a hamster or a ferret, or it is part dog, part hamster, part ferret. You never know what you will find.
I probably could have been more clear in my writing there. Yeah.
No, to be clear, it could be part hamster and ferret. I mean, I've seen some doozies.
Could be a hamster that identifies as a ferret. You just never know.
Oh my gosh. Right. Yeah, man. Holy crap. Number 2, the puppy will have the run of our house all day. We would never use a crate. Gee whiz. We plan to take it to PetSmart for training. Oh, yeah. Heck yeah. Oh, quality. Or number 4, use the word human or possum anywhere in the application. There certainly are signs, aren't they? I mean, these people don't exactly hide it all that well.
Honestly, I hate dog puns. I hate all of them. Like every dog pun. So for me, like if an application comes in and there's a dog related pun in it, or they say fur baby or anything like that, like they're immediately in an uphill battle to make it any further with us. Yeah. It's not to say
Stephanie's really trying to get them off.
At that point in time, like we have not gotten off on the right foot. So look, I wouldn't necessarily say that the pun is an immediate deal breaker.
Sure.
We have people on our page who follow us for a long time who will make puns like that, and I will every time give them a hard time about it because I hate it. But it's not necessarily a deal breaker. You want to buy a dog as a friend for another animal? I don't want to sell you a dog. You're gonna tell me that you're gonna go to, you know, the local church basement dog training, or PetSmart or whatever else. Like that's just not appropriate for what we sell. And so
quick way to
really all we can do, like when we're going through applications, you're just making your best guess. It's like hiring, right? When you're hiring someone for your business, like you can get the job application, you can do the interview, At the end of the day, you're guessing. You really don't know until you sell the dog to that person, whether or not you made the right choice. All you can do is gather as much information as you can and hope. And in part of that information gathering is like, if we see an application that says I'm looking for a dog as a friend for another dog, or this church basement training, or I forget what the other one was, but those three, the top three things on that list, that to me is just information. It's not a knock on the person. It's information that says the fit isn't right.
They're not fit for this dog, not
It's
this litter, not these bloodlines.
Right. Just the fit. The fit's not right. And so we have to use these little indicators, because we don't know who these people are. We don't do the video visit of the house. And like, I think that is intrusive. You may have that in one of my other greatest hits. That one I wrote something about that, where like, if your breeder wants to see the inside of your house, go find another breeder. Like,
yeah, man.
That to me
get their
is
Hitler badge.
You're like, honestly, I breed dogs. Like, I am not so important that I should be able to see the inside of your house. That to me, like, and the thought of like, making rules that the person has to follow afterwards, and then I'm going to come and check up on them. And like, look, we have in our puppy contract that if you get your dog neutered before the age of 2, or 18 months, whatever it is, the health guarantee is null and void. Great.
That's right.
That's in there. Am I going to come to your house and check your dog's balls? Like, no, I'm not. We make our choice up front. We sell to people that we think that we can trust based on the tremendous amount of work that we do to try to get to know whether it's going to be the right fit. And then after that, it's not our dog anymore. It's their dog. And the choices are theirs, not ours at that point.
So I want you to speak to the differences, because you mentioned a few of these things. I want you to laundry list them for me. All these things that incur expense for a good breeder, that you don't get if you didn't pay that price tag, because they have to make their money back. There are a lot of things. There's health testing. I remember Stephanie talking to me about like neither side of the herder's bloodline having a certain gene for, I think, a heart condition. And speak to all of the things you guys do that the backyard breeder's just not going to do. They're just going to get the dog knocked up, put in a whelping box of sorts, and then just hope for the best. I mean, as up to and including, Delta's a very clean animal. She has not once peed or pooped in her crate. She has slept through the night since the first night we got her from you guys.
That's amazing. And we don't guarantee that, just so that everybody's aware.
Right. Yeah. Well, what do you call it? The canine casino?
The canine casino. That's it.
So, but there's a lot of, and Ivan talks about it in his puppy raising bundle or whatever, how like you can start, you have them on wood shavings or on paper shavings or on, something. And then you start like sequestering those to only one part of the crate so that they can start understanding we poop and pee in certain spots, but not in others. Speak to kind of the things that go into raising a dog that's going to be easier to live with that the backyard breeder will never do.
Sure. So we'll start from, I've already talked about a lot of the stuff that happens before the puppies are born. So let's just start right at, whelping. So the first thing is that I whelp all my own litters. Unless the dog needs an emergency C-section, which is what happened in this last litter, I don't take the dog to the vet. I have spent hours pulling out stuck puppies, birthing fluid in my beard, covered in all of the glory that is giving birth to a large litter of dogs. And the fact of the matter is that in doing that, the first part is that you're so close to that litter that you start to really gain an understanding of each of the puppies from the second that they come out, and you start to see things in each of those puppies as they grow. Is that the biggest thing? No, but I consider it important. I don't think someone can call themselves a breeder if they're not whelping their own litters. That to me is a fundamental part of it. And I've been very fortunate to have a mentor who's been able to, Andrea, if you're watching, thank you, who has been able to show me how to do that. We don't let our clients choose their dogs. We choose the dog for the client based on the things that the client is looking for. The reason for that is that there's absolutely nothing that a client will be able to see in an hour or two with a dog that is more valuable than what I can see in a dog over 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And so a big part of what we do is I'm constantly watching the puppies. I'm watching them when they're in the box looking for the nipple. I don't help the puppies get on the nipple. We take a very hands-off approach. Mom does the work. Unless a dog is dying, and even then you have to make decisions. Breeding is tough. Sometimes a dog is dying because that dog is not meant to live, and nature is doing what nature does. And as a breeder, you sometimes have to make the call as to whether or not going above and beyond is the right thing to do. And with working dogs, often going above and beyond is not the right thing to do. So sometimes you got to make those decisions too. But anyway, that's just a little aside.
Wow.
I'm watching the puppies as they are crawling toward the nipple when they're blind and the only thing they have to use is their nose. Your puppy, for instance, at a week old, there's a video online of your puppy climbing over all of her litter mates, fighting her way onto a nipple, fighting another puppy off the nipple, getting on, latching, getting knocked off, crawling back around, going up and over. And so those are the types of things, like you'll see one puppy doing that, and then you'll see another puppy that gets knocked off and lies there and doesn't bother trying to get back into the fray until everybody else. So that's another, like the expertise that it takes to be able to understand what you're looking at and to start to see how those things are going to translate as they get older. Is it always a direct, straight path? Of course not. The dog is going to change in a million different ways between the time it's born and the time it's an adult. But you can start to see things, and your average backyard breeder is not going to know what they're looking at. They're not going to know what they're looking for. And I would argue that it's much less likely that they are going to be able to choose the appropriate dog for the client as a result of that. What else do we do? As soon as the puppies can hear, there's one other thing before then. Right away on day 3, we do something called early neurological stimulation. We start doing ENS on the puppies. So what does that mean? We take each puppy and we hold it in 5 different positions. Upright, upside down, on its back. We tickle the feet with a Q-tip, and then we put it down on a cold, wet cloth. And all of these things are different sensations that the dog would never experience naturally at that point in its life. You'll see a whole bunch of stuff online that says it improves the immune system and this and that. I think that's a whole lot of BS. I don't believe any of that. And I don't think there's really a whole lot of science to support it either. What I do believe it does is it introduces a mild amount of stress at a young age.
Right.
And I think that it's a huge mistake to try to keep stress away from your dog. I think it's incumbent upon us to teach our dogs how to manage stress, because there's no such thing as a life that doesn't include stress.
That's right.
And the dog that learns how to manage stress and how to work in stressful situations is going to be a more successful dog at life. And so what this does is that it puts a very mild, the whole process takes 20-25 seconds per dog. It's incredibly fast. It's very gentle, but it stresses the dog just a little bit. And what you can see is over time, that stress becomes less and less and less and less, and the dog gets used to it. And that to me is helping. It's laying the foundation for what will eventually become a resilient dog. You're helping to build resilience in your dogs. As soon as the dogs can hear, we start playing loud noises for them. So we whether that's gunshots, thunder, crowd noises, heavy equipment, whatever else. I don't know if you use Spotify at all, but it's the Spotify has this new DJ function on it, which is pretty awful in general, but it's really funny. It's really funny when the AI DJ comes on and says, hey, Jamie, I'm going to play some of your all-time favorites, some of the stuff you listen to the most. Here's car horns honking. And then it just goes into a playlist of a whole bunch of different sound effects, because that's what gets played for the puppies, like on loop all the time on my Spotify playlist. And so they get a lot of that. When mom stops cleaning up after them, which is right around the time that they start eating solid food, we get them onto solid food fairly early, 3.5 weeks, basically as soon as they're able to start putting some in their mouth, they get put onto solid food. And then we transition them. And by the end of the 4th week, they're more or less weaned. Mom decides when they're going to be weaned. And usually by 3 weeks, mom has had just enough of them biting at her nipples.
Yeah.
And so at that point, when mom stops cleaning up after them, we move them into the puppy pen. And this was actually, look, this is a learning experience. And in the past, we've had smaller litters and we've used a smaller puppy setup. And it was extremely successful because it was a smaller space. We had a delineated potty area, and the puppies would go there automatically. So by the time they went home, they were largely potty trained. We had an interesting learning experience in this one, where it's the biggest litter we've ever had, and I have more space with my new training building than I've ever had before. And I said to myself, I'm going to make a sweet puppy pen so that these dogs have a lot of room to move around. Well, what ends up happening when they have a lot of room to move around is that they're not really incentivized to go potty in the potty area. So I had that same potty thing in there, and they would just go wherever they wanted.
Wherever.
And now, luckily, it's a big enough pen that they didn't get filthy, because they had enough room to move, and they didn't get covered and everything else. Because that's a big thing too. The reason your dog is a clean dog, and the reason our dogs are clean dogs, is because we don't let them be dirty. If they're dirty, we clean them. And so a lot of the time with a lot of breeders, especially backyard breeders, that's not the case. And they'll live in filth until the day they go home, and then they get hosed off and sprayed with perfume and sent home, right?
And they become dirty dogs that are just happy as anything to be covered in poop, and they don't care.
That's right. And so
I've got a Vicenji that was very poorly bred into that crap, and a client offloaded the dog onto me, and he's a dirty dog because he was kind of bred like garbage.
So we always say in all of training, don't let a dog practice the behaviors that you don't want it to perform.
That's right.
And that starts very early, where if your dog is allowed to just practice being filthy, it's going to be fine. Normal. Being filthy, that becomes normalized. And dogs are not naturally, they don't naturally want to be filthy. They won't soil their own area for the most part. And so it's cleanliness, I would argue, is the more natural path than the dirty dog path. And so anyway, I don't want to drag this out for too long, but we had to make some changes. We ended up keeping them in a day in a smaller area, and as a result, we ended up getting the same behaviors, the pooping behavior, and that's why she was more or less potty trained by the time you got her. And then the I guess the last piece of it is that I start training them immediately. So from the time they're big enough to use their nose and start following a lure around, I start luring them with food, and start, because let's be honest, that's the foundation of any training program. It starts with luring. Any good training program is going to start with some kind of luring. And that's something that a puppy can do starting at, 4 weeks old. So I try to set them up for success as much as possible. And right now, everyone is listening to this probably thinking to themselves, that sounds very time consuming. It's very time consuming.
That's the point.
And if you're not willing to put the time in, don't start breeding dogs. That's my view. And I'm very lucky that, this is my job. I can do this full time. I could not do this on the side. It's not possible. The amount, like, there's a video that I put up when the puppies were all 9 were still here, of the morning ritual of coming into the puppy pen in the morning after having them been in there all night. And for I had this litter for longer. I had them till about 10 weeks. So for 10 weeks, 7 days a week, every single day, without a break, you are cleaning up poop every day, constantly, all day long.
90% poop management.
Breeding dogs is 90% poop management and 10% everything else. There is no animal on earth, and this is science, you can look it up. There's no animal on earth that can produce and spread like a puppy. It doesn't happen. It's almost supernatural in their ability to do it, and in the quantity that little animal is able to produce. And so look, my disgust meter is completely broken. Like, I don't,
of course,
I don't get disgusted by anything. And
I had a client who asked me if
kind of the way you got to be.
I had a client who asked me if her house smelled like dog, and I laughed and I said, "You're asking the wrong guy. I wouldn't know." I was like, I lost my ability to smell dog scents a long time ago. I can tell you what cat pee smells like. Like, I can identify cat smells. Cannot identify dog smells. It's just
no. I'm immune to all of it. I mean, I look out my door here, and like, we sweep probably 3 times, 4 times a day, and I'm looking out here, and there's like tumbleweeds of fur, and does my house smell like dog? I assume it does. It doesn't to me, but I would have to imagine if somebody without dogs came in here, we're a dog house, so yeah, probably.
So, something I'm really glad to have had you on. We touched on a lot of things that I think is really valuable. So there are some people listening to this and they like dogs and they're thinking about dog training, and you're kind of the model. Like, you had an established career, but this is what drove you. So you went to it. And not only that, you got into the hardest part of the business, which is breeding well-crafted boutique dogs. These are not, this is nothing you'll ever find at Petland or whatever it's called. This is nothing you're ever going to find in a backyard or part-time side hustle breeders, house. You go into that and you take a specialized look at working dogs, and you went the hardest route possible, and kudos to you. If you had it to do over again, you're in your little finance office hating your frickin' life, is there anything you would have done differently? I'm not talking about something as small as, well, probably would have worn a blue shirt and
No, I get it. The reason I hesitate is because this question is a central question in my life. I consider myself to have won the lottery of life, where I live a life that I love, and I wake up every morning and I love doing what I'm doing. And I'm a big fan of the saying that you can have it all, you just can't have it all at once. And that's kind of the way I look at it, where I feel like I've got it all, but it took a winding path for me to get here. And I don't know if I could have gotten here without having taken that path. If I didn't have the financial security that I had, would I have been willing to take the risk? If I didn't have the wife with the job as a prosecutor, as a backstop, if this didn't work, who not only has that job, but is willing to support her husband to go from being a banker to being a dog trainer and dog breeder. Like, I have all of these things that I consider myself so very fortunate to have.
Yeah.
That it doesn't feel right to say that I did anything wrong to get here or that I should have done something differently to get here. Because if I hadn't have taken that path that I ended up taking and done the things that I did and you know, fallen to the emotional level that I had to fall to realize that I had to do something different, I I would probably just be plugging along being a mediocre banker, trying to climb the ranks,
Hating it.
and hating it every day. So that's a long way of saying that I've thought about this a lot, and I don't think I'd change anything. I
Don't
think
regret a
that
mile.
that it's you
I
can't
love
look.
it.
No, I don't regret any of it, because all of that stuff that happened, it led me to where I am
Good to hear.
now, and today I'm fulfilled.
I
And
love
that
that.
to me, happiness, I don't think is the goal, but fulfillment is the goal. And that's what I have now. And I'm lucky for it.
I think that's something that does allow us some insight on dogs. When you talk about fulfillment, I said it yesterday, that lack of fulfillment, unfulfillment, is one of the worst things a dog can experience, and it's one of the reasons why so many pet dogs act like crap. And they're not crap dogs, but they act like crap because they're
Yes.
not fulfilled. You asked an animal that was born for hunting, that was born for, going 20 or 30 miles in a day. You asked an animal like that to sit on your couch and, uh, eat Cheetos with you.
Yeah.
Jamie, you have been awesome. You guys, you train. If I recall correctly, you do private lessons and you do board and trains. And I know Stephanie does online consultation. Do you as well?
No. So the online consultation, I handle the in-person stuff. Stephanie will do in-person as well as online.
Mm-hmm.
She handles, so we do behavior modification here. As I've said a bunch of times, I'm a big believer in knowing what you know, and in going to people who are better than you when there's something you don't
Yeah,
know. And so,
absolutely.
when we have the tough cases, I will always consult with Stephanie on what her thoughts are.
Sure.
But look, she's a PhD. This is her world, and so
Of
I'm very,
course.
very fortunate to be able to have surrounded myself with people who are really, really good at what they do.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so yeah, she handles the online side of things, and then I'll handle the in-person side.
And do you guys have another litter planned? Say somebody's hearing this and going, man, I love the German Shepherd and I love everything this guy said. I mean, he really resonates with me. When is the soonest? I mean, it's hard to predict this stuff because,
Well, we
especially
actually have
because
a
of,
female who just went into heat on Friday. I took her in immediately before we started today for her first progesterone test.
no kidding.
We're going to be finding out when she's ready to be bred, and we have an amazing stud lined up, a dog named Ace.
No
Fantastic
kidding.
pedigree. Yeah, and it's too bad we don't have more time to talk about it. He's the first non-titled male that we're going to be, well, actually, first non-titled German Shepherd male we're going to be breeding to. And there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of very good reasons for that. So at some point, that's probably worth discussing. But at any
Yeah.
rate, spectacular male. And Nina Van Tiekerhoek, we got her in from Holland after Koos, my mentor, passed away. He left me his
Oh,
breeding stock. We were able to bring her in.
two Tiger
We
hooks.
have two. We have
Oh my
well, so
gosh.
Nina, and then Indy is Nina's daughter.
Yeah.
And
Oh
so
my
Nina,
gosh.
yeah, so we're very, very lucky. I can see
They're
here our time is
bomb-proof
running low, and
dogs.
we're about to turn into a pumpkin here, I think, right? So are we good to go once this time ticks down,
I don't have
or is it
anything
going
on
to cut
my
us
end.
off immediately?
Oh
Oh
no, it
no,
shouldn't.
I've got a
Shouldn't cut us off.
50-second timer here.
Oh,
So
well,
yeah,
it doesn't say it on my end. It might. I don't know. Who knows?
all right, no, I just didn't know if I had to rush what I was saying or not. But yeah, we're lucky.
You
We have
shouldn't have
two.
to. If it does, I'll call you back.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we have the two Tiger hooks. So this one is Nina. Nina is the grandmother of your litter of Delta.
Yeah.
And she's the mother of Indy, who was the mother of your litter. She's also the grandmother of Solo, who's our black working line long haired that we're now in the process of selling.
Bad of the bone. Bad of the bone. I wish I could take him. He's furry ears and all. Furry ears and all.
He's a nice dog. I absolutely hate the long hair, I got to admit, but I got a special place in my heart for that guy.
Yeah, he looks like the most adorable little bonehead.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
So,
He's a good dog.
where can people find you? They hear this, and they go, "Man, that guy sounds knowledgeable. I need to work with somebody like this." How do they get a hold of you?
Most active places are Facebook, Black Kraken Canine, Instagram, Black Kraken Canine. We have a website, blackkrakencanine.com. That's BLACKKRAKENK9.com. It is, despite our best efforts, as up to date as the average dog breeder's website is.
Sure.
Which any of you who are looking at dog breeders' websites will know exactly what I mean by that. So that's, look, we all have holes in our game. I would say that's one of ours, but we're very active on social media. So look us up, send us a note. Happy to talk, dogs or whatever you get, puppies, whatever you guys want.
Cool deal. Well, Jamie, you've been awesome. It's been so great having you. As a personal reference, if you don't know Jamie and Stephanie, I couldn't recommend them any more highly for their dogs. If you have questions, they're both very educated, very experienced handlers and trainers, and I couldn't recommend it more. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, man. And I
Thank you
look
for
forward to
having me.
buying
And
another dog from you.
yeah, on a personal note, thank you very much for trusting us. Like I get what a big thing it is to buy a dog, and to be able to sell dogs to other professionals is a real important, and it's something that we really like, because we want our dogs to be able to achieve their genetic potential, and with
Yeah.
people like you, that's where they have that best chance. So thank you for that, and thanks a ton for having me. Hopefully we can do it again.
All right, sounds good, brother. I'll see you.
Take care, man.
Bye.
Bye.